Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony of Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2026 will start very soon. Please take a seat and please turn your mobile devices into silent mode. Thank you for your cooperation. 女士们、先生们，2026香港 Web3 嘉年华即将开始，请大家尽快就座，并将手机调至静音状态。感谢大家的配合。Good morning, distinguished guests, honored speakers, partners, and all attendees. Welcome. A very warm welcome to everyone here to the opening ceremony of the Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2026, co-organized by Hashkey Group and Wangxiang Blockchain Labs and organized by W3Me. I'm Jasmine. It's my absolute pleasure to be the MC for today's event. Today, we are here in this dynamic global finance hub to celebrate Asia's premier gathering for the Web3 ecosystem. Welcome everyone again. Thank you for having me here. 尊敬的来宾、女士们、先生们、各位业界同仁，大家好！欢迎大家莅临由 Hashkey Group 与万象区块链实验室联合举办、W3Me 承办的香港 Web3 嘉年华2026开幕仪式。我们齐聚于这个充满活力的全球金融中心，共同庆祝亚洲最具代表性的 Web3 盛会。Over the coming few days, we will connect, collaborate, and explore the boundless possibilities of the future of Web3 with world-leading crypto exchanges, stellar Web3 projects, and experts from Web3, TradFi, and many other fields. 未来几天，我们将携手交流、合作，共同探索 Web3 的无限可能，与世界领先的加密货币交易所、卓越的 Web3 专案，以及来自 Web3 传统金融和众多领域的专家们一起展望未来。First, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to extend our sincere gratitude towards our title sponsors of Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2026, OKX Wallet, Signal Plus, and Tron, and diamond sponsors, Bitfire, Meet48, and ZA Bank. And also a big thank you to Cyberport and HATDC for supporting this event as strategic partners. 首先，请允许我向冠名赞助商致以诚挚的感谢 OKX Wallet、Signal Plus 和 Tron， 以及钻石赞助商 Bitfire、Meet48 和 ZA Bank。同时，也非常感谢数码港与香港贸发局作为策略合作伙伴，谢谢大家的支持。Now, without further ado, let's invite our first distinguished speaker to deliver the welcome remark. Please welcome Mr. Lu Weiding, Deputy to the National People's Congress, Vice Chairman of the All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, and Chairman and CEO of Wangxiang Group. 我们有请全国人大代表、全国工商联副主席、万象集团董事长兼 CEO 卢伟鼎先生上台发表欢迎词，掌声有请。
正经的陈市长、陈茂波市长、陈浩濂副局长，各位立法会的议员，我们正经的各位嘉宾，女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家上午好。4月第4届的2026 Web3 香港嘉年华，4年前特区政府发布虚拟资产政策的宣言，4载春耕，香港以数字策源地姿态是过去的证明。香港要成为在全球数字资产的中心地位，更应要在稳定币、资产代币化等领域，能给全球贡献清晰的香港方案。我们站在一个不可逆转的起点 ，Web3 正与 AI、具身智能深度融合，共同构建智能经济底座。Web3 是秩序，确立信任与价值所有权。数字世界会有常识规则的公正，会有规则常识的公正。AI 是智慧，让数据产生智能生产力核心，爆发指数时代。具身智能是载体，物理世界之躯体是数字灵魂，真正扩大实体。当 Web3 的协议、AI 的算法与具身智能是多元互联、价值互通、自主互享的一生二，二生三，三生万物。这正要是 Web3 未来香港生态的爆发力。过去3届，我们的演讲嘉宾已经成为连接东西方、跨越数字与现实的全球枢纽，不是旁观趋势，是塑造趋势。历史要奖励探路者、好人经济的到来。在接下来的4天里，我仅代表万象区块链实验室和香港哈斯凯集团，向各位嘉宾、行业领先者和媒体朋友们表示热烈欢迎，真诚祝愿。谢谢大家。
谢谢 ，Thank you, Mr. Liu, for that inspiring welcome and for your visionary support. 再次感谢卢总的致辞，谢谢你。Ladies and gentlemen, Hong Kong's role as a forward-looking international financial center is pivotal. To officially open our festival, we are very privileged to have with us a key architect of Hong Kong's financial future. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honourable Paul Chemopo, GBM GBS MHJP Financial Secretary of the Government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region for the opening speech. 接下来，我们有请香港财政司司长陈茂波先生为我们致辞，掌声有请。
卢伟鼎董事长、萧峰总 distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a pleasure to join you at the Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2026, a gathering of dreamers, innovators, and investors who are exploring and building the next generation of financial and technological infrastructure. We are meeting at an important moment, as 2026 is very much a turning point. On the one hand, Web3 is maturing, with its applications extending into more parts of the real economy. Around the world, financial institutions are increasingly using digital assets and tokenization to enhance efficiency, cut costs, shorten settlement time, and devise innovative products for clients. More types of assets, from money and bonds to real assets and future income, are being represented in tokens that can move easily and come in smaller, more accessible units. This is creating new ways to invest, to fund projects, and share risks across a wider community of participants. On the one hand, driven by AI, universal connection, and omnipresence of data, digital intelligence is being embedded into the economy. The rise of agentic AI this year is another remarkable milestone. They can analyze information, make decisions, and carry out actions on their own, including interacting directly with other systems. No doubt, the intersection of Web3 and AI is a game changer. We can expect a future where AI agents analyze information and act at machine speed, making full use of blockchain infrastructure in the background. Together, they will lift transaction efficiency to a new level, representing a wider range of activities, from finance and trade to wealth management, supply chain operations, and logistics. This combination will create massive new opportunities, but it also raises a number of issues that we must address together. First, the speed gap. If AI can act in milliseconds, then the related infrastructure, payment and settlement, for example, must keep pace. It cannot wait for days or even hours. But here, the challenge is not only about technology. In the global Web3 environment, we also need common standards and close cross-border cooperation so that activities can be recognized, processed, and supervised in a broadly consistent way across jurisdictions. Second, human control and security. Agentic AI has the ability to make decisions autonomously. This means that we must ensure its behavior remains predictable, traceable, and open to human interaction. We need clear guardrails so that people stay in control, so that misuse, manipulation, or cascading errors can be detected and stopped in time. Third, regulation and accountability. As AI-driven activity moves across many platforms, products, and markets, we must make sure that regulation and governance frameworks follow suit, so that investors, users, consumers are properly protected. With the growing power of AI, we must also address risks such as cybersecurity, scams, and system bias in a coordinated way. Above all, decentralization and digital intelligence do not mean weaker accountability or lower standards. Instead, they can enable smarter ways to build compliance and oversight into the financial system, strengthening its overall integrity. In the light of this development, you may be interested in the position that Hong Kong takes. Let me set out our approach. On Web3 and AI, Hong Kong's approach has been clear and consistent. Under the one country, two systems principle, Hong Kong as an international financial center embraces innovation, new technologies, Web3, tokenization, and AI. They are now becoming important building blocks for the future of mainstream finance. Our doors are open to Web3 entrepreneurs and institutions worldwide who want to build and scale their business here. As we chart our course in these areas, a few principles will continue to guide our strategy and policies. First, we maintain a balanced, forward-looking regime guided by the principle of same activity, same risk, same regulation, with a strong focus on risk management and investor protection. Second, we believe that the real value of blockchain technology and digital assets lies in solving real-life problems, reducing costs, speeding up settlement, improving transparency, and making financial services more inclusive. Third, we are firmly pro-innovation. Indeed, our regulators carry a dual mandate: prudent regulation and market development facilitation. They work side by side with innovators through sandboxes and pilots, testing new tools in a controlled environment, identifying risks early, and providing timely, practical feedback. These principles are central to our approach to digital assets. An example is stablecoins, for which we issue two issuer licenses earlier this month. Stablecoins have significant potential to address long-standing pain points in economic activities, especially in cross-border trade and payment. At the same time, we must firmly protect users and the wider community with stability of the financial system in mind. That is why we have adopted a prudent step-by-step approach with strong compliance culture and capability as a prerequisite for any stablecoin issuers. We are taking the lead in encouraging more tokenization. We have issued multiple rounds of tokenized green and infrastructure bonds, amounting to over $2 billion. These transactions have helped demonstrate how tokenization can improve settlement efficiency and broader market participation. We have now regularized this practice. We are determined to drive more innovative use cases in tokenization. For example, building on Project Ensemble, the Hong Kong MA launched Ensemble TX last November. This pilot allows market participants to use tokenized deposits in money market fund transactions to manage liquidity and treasury positions in real time. With AI becoming such a powerful force, our mission is to harness it to empower different industries. We call this AI Plus. That is why, as outlined in this year's budget, we will establish the Committee on AI Plus and Industry Development Strategy. The convergence of Web3 create the convergence of Web3 and AI, and the opportunities and challenges they create for finance and other sectors will be one focus area of this committee. Looking ahead, there is still much to do as we enter an accelerated phase of Web3 and AI. This will require us to encourage and support more innovative applications while continuously learning from experience and enhancing our framework to keep pace with changes. By maintaining an open and balanced attitude, I'm confident that Hong Kong will become a hub where the next generation of technologies are developed, applied, and scaled ambitiously and responsibly. I invite all of you, innovators, entrepreneurs, and investors, to join us as we move forward. On this note, I wish the Hong Kong Web3 Festival every success and all of you the best of health and businesses. And I understand that there are thousands of participants coming from abroad to this wonderful event. I would appeal to you to stay in Hong Kong for a couple more days because there are a lot to enjoy in this city. If you came in early, you would realize, for example, the Rugby 7 in the past few days, very energetic, very happy, and very promising moment. But at the same time, Hong Kong has much to offer, particularly for our young entrepreneurs here. You know, we don't impose any tax on wine. We have over close to 200 Michelin-recommended restaurants. And we have wonderful country parks and hiking trails. Please, do stay on, join your friends, enjoy this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your powerful address. And please stay with us on stage. Please kindly proceed to the center of the stage. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our VIP guest on stage to take a group photo together. 现在我们有请以下嘉宾上台合影。我们有请全国人大代表、全国共上联副主席、万象集团董事长兼 CEO 卢伟鼎先生，掌声有请。香港财经事务及库务局副局长陈浩濂先生，香港证监会中介机构部执行董事叶志恒先生，万象区块链董事长 Hashkey Group 董事长兼 CEO 肖峰先生，香港立法会议员、科技创新界邱达根先生，香港贸发局副总裁古静明女士，香港数码港主席陈锡明先生，以及我们各位立法会议员吴杰庄先生、林伟全先生、简慧明女士、黄永卫先生、李振生先生、李广宇先生，再次用掌声欢迎我们各位嘉宾。Let's give a big round of applause to welcome our distinguished guest on stage. 欢迎各位嘉宾。好，现在我们看一看我们中建大会试营室的位置。Let's look towards the center and our official photographer first. Ready? 1, 2, 3, big smile. Lovely. 接下来我们一起给一个赞，好不好？ Let's give a like. And let's look towards the middle for a photo together. Wonderful. Thank you so much. A big round of applause for our guest on stage. 再次用掌声感谢我们台上的嘉宾。And now I'd like to invite our guest to please be seated. 现在我们有请我们嘉宾可以到台下就座，谢谢各位。Once again, thank you so much to our distinguished guests on stage again for making our event even more memorable. 再次感谢我们台上的嘉宾，谢谢你们的到来。Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote session now begins, diving into the core of policy, regulation, and innovation. And without further ado, please welcome Mr. Joseph Chan, JP Undersecretary for Financial Services and the Treasury of the Hong Kong SAR Government. Mr. Chan, please.
Lu 总、邵峰总、各位嘉宾、各位朋友，大家早上好。我非常的荣幸可以出席2026年香港 Web3 嘉年华的开幕式，有机会跟大家一起去讨论 Web3 在这个世界上最新的发展。那么，首先我要热烈的欢迎环球 Web3 的领袖、专业人士，还有创新者、热爱者到香港来参加这个嘉年华。这个活动呢，汇聚了我们 Web3 相关的一些热门的话题和发展的趋势，让大家一起可以热烈的交流，共进那个 Web3 往后的发展。香港是亚洲领先的国际金融中心，我们一直以来以开放务实的态度去推动 Web3 和那个大币化的发展。那么，其实，在现在的环球经济价值中呢，香港呢，借我们一国两制的制度优势，在背靠祖国、联通世界的独特背景下呢，已经发展成为亚洲领先的国际金融中心。一方面，在一国之下，我们香港是拥有特入整入内地市场的优势；在两制之下呢，香港的核心竞争力包括香港基金是自由流动的。我们有普通法的制度，我们有与海外主要市场接轨的监管制度，以及简单和低的税制等等。在这个背景以下呢，香港发展成为亚洲领先的国际金融中心，在全球的金融中心指数当中排名世界第3位，亚洲第1位。其中呢，我们的金融科技的领域呢，也是继续位居全球第1位的。事实上，香港在不同的金融排名榜当中也是名列前茅，包括在那个 IPO 首次交股的直资金额、亚洲国际债券发行额、保险密度、跨境财富管理的规模，以及对冲基金管理的规模等等，也是排名亚洲第1位的。这些不单只是对我们香港金融体系的肯定，也为 Web3 的创新提供了坚实的基础。香港特区政府一直以来对 Web3 的发展是保持开放和积极的态度。我们早在2022年已经发表了有关虚拟资产在香港发展的政策宣言，表示我们认为数字资产在市场发展上已经变得不可或缺，展示了我们特区政府拥抱那个 Web3 的开放态度，有见数字资产的发展潜力。香港过去几年呢，一直积极的部署，逐步的构建一套平衡风险管理和投资者保障以及行业发展的规管框架，促进香港的数字资产生态圈和可持续的发展。我们在去年呢发表了香港数字资产发展政策宣言 2.0。政策宣言 2.0 呢，建基于2022年的首份宣言，重新我们特区政府致力将香港打造成为数字资产领域中的全球创新的中心，并提出那个 LEAP 的框架，标志着我们香港正迈向那个值得信赖、可持续和深度融入实体经济发展的数字生态圈。LEAP 的4大基础涵盖了我们未来的发展的蓝图，包括优化法律和那个监管，扩展代币化产品的种类，推进应用场景和 跨界别的合作以及人才和合作伙伴的那个发展。首先是 L，Legal and Regulatory Streamlining， 这是优化法律和监管。我们正构建一套统一的全面的数字资产服务提供者的一个监管结构，包括交易平台、稳定币的发行人、交易服务提供者和托管的服务提供者。其中呢，香港现在已经有超过10家的持牌的交易平台。那么香港的金融管理局呢，也在本月呢发出了首批2个的稳定币的发行人牌照。那么往后呢，我们现在正与那个证监会积极的制定数字资产交易服务提供者和数字资产托管的服务提供者的规管的制度。目标呢是在今年之内呢，向立法会提交我们的条例草案。这个全面的框架呢，将为我们数字资产行业提供稳固的那个基础，让创新可以在风险可控的环境中发展。第二呢是 E，expanding the suite of tokenized products， 就是扩展大币化的产品的种类。只是特区政府呢，将大币化的债券已经发行了，已经常规化，并推动了更多资产类别的大币化，包括那个贵金属，还有有息的金属、可再生的能源等等，展示那个大币化的技术和实体经济可以紧密结合的。我们的证监会早在2024年已经认可首支可供香港零售买卖的大币化纸黄金投资产品。哪一个呢？是全球第一支由跨国银行为零售投资者推出的大币化黄金投资产品。那么去年呢，证监会也授权了香港首支面向零售投资者的那个大币化的货币市场基金。到现在呢，香港已经有超过10支由那个证监会可以认可的大币化货币市场基金。那么下一步呢，证监会跟那个业界研究2级市场的交易规则，目标是在今年上半年内呢公布政策的细节。这些的措施呢，将进一步丰富投资的选择，让更多的投资者可以参与数字资产的创新。第3个 A 就是 advancing use cases and cross-sectoral collaboration， 这是推进应用场景和跨界别的合作。在应用实践上面呢，特区政府跟刚刚财政司司长提过了，我们在2023跟2024年已经发行了大币化绿色债券之后，在去年2025年11月也发行了第3批的那个大币化的绿色债券，那么总额呢是达到100亿的港元，为全球最大的规模。这次发行呢也引入呢大币化央行的货币的招收选项，是首次呢可以应用人民币和港元大币化的央行货币的数码债券。那么同时呢，跟司长刚刚提过，就是2024年金融管理局已经推出了那个 Project Ensemble 的那个沙盒的项目。那么还有呢，Project Ensemble 在去年11月已经进行了一个新的阶段，叫 Ensemble TX， 会聚焦呢大币化货币市场基金的交易的知识流动性的管理。第4呢，这是 P， 代表 People and Partnership Development， 这是人才和合作伙伴的发展。人才是产业发展的根本，我们积极推动大学和业界的策略合作，连接学识那个研究和实际的应用。人和人就的计划将聚焦新区块链的应用、大币化的框架，还有监管技术和人工智能驱动的金融工具，来培养新一代的企业家、研究人员和技术专家。各位嘉宾、各位朋友，香港会继续稳步的推进数字资产行业的发展，我们会继续秉持相同业务、相同风险、相同规则的那个原则，持续优化一套既切合我们本地情况，也符合国际标准的监管制度，去确保呢香港的数字资产市场健康、负责任，还有可持续的那个发展，来进一步巩固提升我们香港的国际金融中心地位。 在此呢，我感谢万商区块链实验室和那个 HashKey Group 主办这个香港 Web3 的嘉年华2026。我相信呢，这次的活动，各位呢一定可以碰撞更多的火花，为香港以及全球的 Web3 生态注入新的动力。我祝愿今天的活动圆满成功，在座各位身体健康，事事如意，谢谢。
谢谢，感谢陈先生的精彩分享。Thank you, Mr. Chen, for outlining the government supportive framework. A trusted and progressive regulatory environment is the bedrock for sustainable growth. Next, we'll hear from the regulatory frontline. Please welcome Dr. Ip Chi Hang, Executive Director of Intermediaries at the Securities and Futures Commission of Hong Kong. Dr. Ip, please.
So thank you, Jasmine, and call me Eric. I'm very happy to be here, ladies and gentlemen, friends, guests. While we are having a lot of discussions today, don't forget one thing. Our forum today is actually called a festival, so it's a time actually for us also to celebrate. What do we celebrate? We want to celebrate success. It's a very good time to be here since the SFC actually launched its Aspire roadmap last year and around February time, so about slightly over 1 year ago. And here, we should celebrate how much we have progressed since then. Very glad to share with you that last year, when I was in Basel attending a Financial Stability Board forum, they mentioned about, in a peer review, they actually have Hong Kong ranked among the most highest in terms of a regulatory regime, comprehensive, complete regulatory regime for digital asset. This is something that I need to thank a lot of people. First and foremost, government leadership. Thank you for the government for pushing this forward. Thank you, Joseph. And also, thank you for market wisdom. A lot of you here has talked to us. I'm sorry to sometimes have you to go through the pain of going through a regulator, but I can guarantee you sometimes the pain is mutual, but also we have a saying that no pain, no gain. And last but not least is also my teammates. That include my colleagues from the SFC and also LegCo members. I guarantee you, especially Duncan, since you're here in front of me, you have a lot more work this year than last year. Now, so when actually we come back to this celebrative event, it's also a good time to reflect and also to plan ahead. So usually when I come on stage, the audience is thinking of us announcing some new exciting initiatives, which we do have one. But instead of doing that, I actually want to look back as to where we are. So my speech today is on Aspire in Action, Advancing Hong Kong Digital Asset Journey. So journey is actually the keyword here. So this is the Aspire roadmap I'm sure a lot of you have seen. Two messages I want you to bring home today. Very simple messages. One, be focused. We have achieved a lot, which I would say a few words about that, but at the same time, we need to continue to focus because there's so much work ahead of us. Second, we can be a little bit more aspirational. Now that we have a stronghold locally, we should also expand our influence, my exposure internationally, globally. Almost every international regulatory conference I attended, Hong Kong has been in the spotlight just because we have so much, we have achieved so much, and we are having a lot of thoughts in the policy work and implementation. This is very, very important, is that we are a jurisdiction, we are a regulator that implement, not just talk, not just announcement, but execute. A bit of a review of the last, it seems like a long time we introduced this roadmap, we have achieved so much. I just gonna have time to put in very briefly 6 milestones that we've been through. 2 months after we announced the roadmap, we actually allowed staking for our platforms and also for our authorized funds. This is actually first of its kind at that time. Now, 2 more months after that, which is on, I believe, is June 28th, 2025, together with the government, with a lot of support from the Financial Services and Treasury Bureau, we actually launched a joint consultation on the virtual asset dealing and custody regime. That was first half last year. And then we actually concluded the consultation on Christmas Eve, 6 months later, with a lot of support and good comments from the public. And then we are progressing. So a bit more work on this, a bit more word on this later. But this is a big achievement. And then somehow in the fourth quarter last year, we allow a bit more service and products for our virtual asset platform. At the same time, we put forward the idea of integration of global liquidity through share order book. And then, also fourth quarter last year, we have this interesting initiative launch, which is called Cryptech, which is using technology to enhance the defense of the Hong Kong digital asset market. And this actually was featured in section 104 in the policy address, which said the SFC is using automated reporting method to create a line of defense for the Hong Kong digital asset market. And then just 2 months ago in February, during another international event, we allow for interesting initiatives in the sense of offering a framework for perpetual contracts, and also allow for margin financing, etc. And also allow for platforms, now we have many of them, to use their affiliated market makers to provide liquidity to Hong Kong investors. So this is a nutshell as to what we have achieved. There's a lot actually within 1 year. And then this is something that I always emphasize. There's a saying in Chinese that's 欲出则不达. In Hong Kong, we never pride ourselves as the fastest and the most adventurous regime launch, but we are steadfast. We move forward step by step. So that's why sometimes we move faster because we are steadfast, not because we are reckless. And that's also the last milestone, which is a work in progress. We also announced an innovative program to integrate communication between the regulator and the market practitioners. We actually launched the virtual asset accelerator tendering, which receives so many interests from the market that we are looking into it right now. Now, that's kind of the past. So I have half of my time left, which is suited for talking about what's going to be our plan for the next 12 months or so. Again, I'm not trying to impress with the audience that we have done a lot. In fact, quite on the contrary. A lot of the works that I think I mentioned just a moment ago require a lot more forward follow-up work that basically have our work planned out for the next 12 months. So this is something that I want to appeal to a lot of the market practitioners, which for the VATPs or the Web3 community often talk to the SFC from time to time. I always ask them to do one thing. Separate your short-term objectives and the long-term objectives. And then forget about the long-term objectives first. Look at then your first-term objectives and then highlight the immediate works that need to be done. That's actually why we want to make sure that we focus not just the regulatory resource, but the whole market resources into achieving short-term results that actually pave way for medium and long-term objectives. And here are the very short-term tasks from a regulator perspective that we are planning ahead for the next 12 months. So I'll group it into 3 clusters instead of just mentioning the 12 initiative. The first cluster, I would say, is innovate through regulation. As I mentioned just a moment ago, we have concluded our virtual asset dealing and custody regime on the 24th of December. But instead of stopping there, we actually buy 2, get 2 free. So we are having another consultation right now that's on also offering, that's based on market feedback, on the virtual asset management and the virtual asset advisory regime. So you get 4 regimes in one go, and I just received the draft bill last week. And the electrical members, I think you will probably be interested in listening to that in the sense that there are 260 pages of that. So if you want to have a bill committee, I understand the process is that you have to go through that one by one. Probably we'll spend a few days together to go through that. And I guarantee you at the SFC, me and my team do actually go through them one by one. So this 260 pages of draft bill, and that's also tremendous work from the Bureau and also from the Department of Justice and the SFC together to make this happen in such a short period of time. So let's work hard on that. And this is only the beginning, because another bit of work, this is only the legislation of the enabling ordinance. We also need regulatory guidance, regulatory framework, rules, detail that actually market participants can use to implement that. So we need to also do consultation on that. That's also a huge chunk of work that that's why I have been talking to a lot of you to make sure that we get it right, and also we listen to market, and at the same time we communicate our regulatory perspective. Now, that's also put in another orange rectangle here on enabling a dynamic approach to custody technologies and also insurance compensation arrangement. I know there's virtual asset insurers here, and then that's also something we have been very stringent on that. We also need to think ahead as to how we embrace technology, embrace a more pragmatic compensation approach, but at the same time not giving up safety protection for the investors. Now, the second cluster of work is actually on product. This is actually what I call innovation through practice. A few things that actually a good example to show that is that we actually issue in 223 tokenized securities framework, high level. But then when we actually talk to market, each product has its own characteristics when you put in Web3, and sometimes you have innovative features that require a lot more thinking. For example, there's one initiative we're going to announce today, this afternoon, is that we are going to allow virtual assets trading platform to trade, not just offer, trade tokenized authorized funds. This is actually, as far as we know, first of its kind framework globally to allow a very predictable framework for trading of tokenized authorized funds on a regulated platform. So we will start with experiment that, again, taking it slowly, steadfast, money market funds. But then it can, if the experience is good, we expand it to all authorized funds, one step at a time. So this is something that we're going to announce today. But that actually requires months of discussion between us and the platforms and the fund managers. Now, the other two things that I mentioned already, we have been talking so much with the markets on the ideas on margin financing. We have to talk about how perp contracts are being structured, how does that feature in our regulatory framework. That's actually not a small thing. We're having a lot of dialogues on that front. Now, and also, on the margin financing, we still need to think about capital adequacy. That's another consultation we do plan. Otherwise, there is no universal practice for offering how capital relief for collaterals that are virtual assets. Last bit is innovation through interactions. That include what I mentioned about the CrypTech initiative, where we actually work with licensed participants in automation of reporting and also thinking about how to collectively manage AML risk, custody risk, market conduct risk on an automated platform. At the same time, we have been signing, getting interest of signing bilateral MOUs with a lot of international jurisdictions because now we do have common regulators to regulate with, to avoid regulatory arbitrage, but also alignment of international practice. And then last but not least, the blue rectangle, the framework for Finfluencer. I mean, Finfluencer is not just for Web3, but it actually does carry a long way in the Web3 ecosystem. That's something that we have been talking to the market. Again, we're going to use a pragmatic approach to understand how the market works and how as a regulator can work together with licensed cops and also investor to combat against financial crime. Now we'll just stop here, and this is a full page of work, and then 1 year later here, we will see how far we go. And I'm sure we will make progress, but this is not it. Let's just focus on what we have on the table and get it executed. So again, back to my speech title, it's a journey. So I encourage all of you to pack your luggage, set sail, and really enjoy the scenery when we go through it together. There will be ups and downs, but I think for the last year, we have also built a lot of trust and empathy between the regulator and the market, and then the balance of us understanding market development, but at the same time, market practitioners, especially the Web3 entrepreneurs and operators, understand regulator perspective. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ip, for those valuable insights from a regulator's perspective. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the intersection of legislation and technology is crucial. We now welcome back to the stage Mr. Duncan Chill, Legislative Council Member for the Technology and Innovation Constituency, Hong Kong, for his keynote speech. A big round of applause to welcome him.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So I'm really happy to see you all. I think it's the 4th year that I've been speaking to you in the Web3 Festival. And, you know, this year, I think with the Joseph and FS and also, you know, Eric sharing with you all the newest or the latest development in the government. I guess I can skip some part of it in my sharings, but you know, I think we are all in line in the message that we want to deliver, that, you know, what Hong Kong is delivering is a steady, progressive development. This is, I think, actually government, LegCo, stakeholders, everyone agree that would be the very positive attitude that we have in Hong Kong. And to share with you what I want to, you know, go into with the next 15 minutes, I think I should actually look back, because this is the 4th year, and, you know, I've been sharing with you for the last 3 years. And I actually did some research and looked back into what I share in the last 3 years in the Web3 Festival. And we're looking at, you know, the last 3 years' journey, as Eric mentioned. We all gone through that journey together since 2022, when Financial Secretary announced the statement on Web3 developments and support from the government. We have done 3 Web3 festivals, and during that time, you know, every year there were progress with the free SP licensing regime, and then we have tried out different products that FS also mentioned just now, the tokenized various bonds to different products, now with the tokenized deposit, etc. That we've gone through many product testings in Hong Kong. And then with last year's Web3 Festival, we have gone through the Policy Statement 2.0, and also Eric has elaborated on the Aspire roadmap from SFC and also from the Hong Kong MA. What it means we look at it as the regulatory clarity and regulatory alignment between the separation of duty between different government regulatory body. And that actually lays a clear roadmap for everyone in the industry that who you have to talk to when you want to issue products in Hong Kong. I think this is really important. I come to that in the end, that clarity is one thing we have to provide to the industry for anyone involved in the industry that want to issue products, that want to be involved, that building a startup, building up a project. Clarity is the number one thing that we need. So I'm not going to go through that. We have that on screen for like 10 minutes from Eric, and he has shared with you all the things that progress at SFC. That actually, I mean, I have to come back again, is the roadmap of what the Hong Kong regulators are providing. And of course, we cannot miss the Hong Kong MA start, which the T represent tokenizations, and we all understand that the stablecoin has been issued 2 weeks ago, and that is also one of the roadmap and progressive roadmap that we are providing. And as the bill chairman last year in the stablecoin, I have to say that in the regulatory side and the legislation side, we work together closely, but Web3 is a global market. So every time when we go through the legislation side, what I do is we have to look into what other part of the world is doing. We have to look in the jurisdictions in other countries in what they're doing. And definitely, US is one of the major market that moving the Web3 regulations forwards. So let's say in last year's debate in the stablecoin bill in LegCo, I have to keep very close attention to the Genius bill in the US, which was actually going through the whole process at the same time in the US side. So what the SEC and the CFTC is doing in the US, I think, is significant to the whole market. And this is also something that we have to pay attention to. And we understand that in the last year, there has been a lot of announcement in the US side, right? So there are the Project Crypto, you have the Clarity Act, and the Genius Act, as I mentioned, in the US that go through the stablecoin legislation was passed around the same time in Hong Kong. And then they have the OCC grants, which allow the banks to actually allow the banks access to cryptos. And the Parity Act that was in the end of 2025. And I have to go into one document that was issued last month in the US, which is the SEC and the CFTC joint statement. I think that was quite significant for the industry because it clearly lays out what is security and what is not under the security regime in the US. And I think that's a very useful document and something that most other countries can consider. So what it lays out as a summary is these four things on the left are not classified as securities, are not classified under the security laws in the US. So digital commodities, digital collectibles, digital tools, and of course the payment stablecoin under Genius Act. I think we also provide some similarity in clarity of classifications under Eric's SFC regime he just mentioned just now. So product classification is really important for us to lay foundation for the market to develop. Because when you issue a product, you want to know whether you're regulated under a certain regime, and you want to know who you have to talk to for the product licensing. So these are actually provide some clarity in the US regime, and the SEC and CFTC collaboration is, you don't see that a lot in the US. But I want to also mention some very interesting points as the safe harbor proposal that was listed in the document. I think this is also something, for us to put further thoughts, because with the safe harbor proposal, it actually allows sort of like the crowdfunding exemption that we have before. When you have the crowdfunding exemption before, it allows certain exemption for you to do certain thing. So when you have the startup exemption and the fundraising exemption, it allows some certain amount of capital you can raise through tokenization and through crypto issuance. So it allows up to $5 million around that suggestions for startup exemptions. But I'm not here to promote for the US regime. I'm here to compare it to Hong Kong, you know. So we all understand with all these things that the US has pushed forward. One important bill is the Clarity Act. And we're friends here from the US. We're going to share later on the progress of these. And it's supposed to pass through in end of April, right? So we're going to keep observing what's going to happen there. It may get through, and I heard from some friend it may not, right? So if it doesn't get through, you know, then it will be pushed until the very end of 2027. And, you know, that will delay a lot of the legislation side in the US. And right now we have no clarity of also the midterm election in the US and, you know, what that will lead to. So, you know, we see that, you know, in writing the bill, I have to give credit to the departments in the US. I think they have written a very good bill. But the political situation will not give clarity sometime to the development of the market. So what we want in the market is steady, transparency, and continuity. So if you want to compare, I want to say that this is what Hong Kong is doing. We do it steady in terms of product classification, legislations, and you know, infrastructure, all the things that we laid out is a steady, progressive build-up that we have in Hong Kong, where some other part of the world, you might have disruption from the political situation. You may not have continuity in the regulatory regime. You will have some progressive move in some term, and then you may see reverse in a different term. So, you know, I'll let you think about it, whether, you know, have a progressive, steady regime is better, or, you know, when you have something that will support you in 4 years and then you take a reverse in another 4 years. So which is a better regime? This is the thing I want to come up with and let friends have your thought, you know, on which one you will support. And what we're going to move forward, I think from my point of view, basically 3 area, you know, we have to work on further. Participant, product, legislation. It also coincides with Aspire or the DARTs, you know, whatsoever. This is how you classify. So my second part of my sharing is focused on these 3 areas: participant, product, legislation. I quickly go through, you know, some of the market happenings in Hong Kong and elsewhere. So the tokenization, classification, this is really important. So we have to understand, as I mentioned, the document from the SEC and CFTC, the main purpose of that is classification. You know, what is security, what is not, who you have to talk to, right? So this is really important. We have the classification. What product you are doing, and any product you have to go to SFC, and anything you don't have to go to SFC. So this is really important. We have that classification of products. I'll skip through that. And we have, you know, market participants, they keep trying on issuing these new products and, you know, getting the regulatory clarity, like Hashkey's, you know, the on-chain issuance of the silverback RWA tokens. And then we have HSBC, they issued a roadmap of, you know, how they do tokenization for their clients. So the, how do they classify this tokenization and the distribution and selling of these products under one systems. And then, you know, the tokenization, this is the, you know, what people expect in the coming years to go. What item can be tokenized, and by different sector, things that we can tokenize. So this is, you know, research by BCG and Ripple. And of course, you know, product side, I mentioned participants, right? So we have banks and FIs in Hong Kong that move the product to different participants or investors. So CA Bank also tried, you know, push crypto for products with KYC under-regulated to retail customers in Hong Kong. And then we have, you know, Franklin Templeton doing the tokenized funds in Hong Kong. So these are all the products that, you know, we are trying. And, you know, with these products, different FI, they are also selling them to different participants and investors. And of course, I don't want to mention that. We just have the 2 stablecoin issues, which is also testing on new products. I suppose there will be new products. We will keep innovating in Hong Kong, and regulator will work with the companies to come up with new products that will be issued in Hong Kong. And this is the stablecoin growth forecast. I will skip that with time's concerned. So as I mentioned, the regulatory framework is also important to clarify the products and clarify the duty of the regulators. So as Eric mentioned, there will be the VA dealing, there will be the VA custody, and there will be management and advisory. There will be more regimes coming, but this is all working hand in hand with the industry to provide clarity to the users and investors. So what are the key challenges? We have gone through many cycles in crypto and related products. We have products that getting quite a lot of traction, but then, they fail or, they lost the interest from the market. Things like, meme coins, and ornaments, and, we have disputes on layer 2, which is very hot in the market 1-2 years back. I think many speakers will talk about that later in the festival. And also, people are having doubts on the DAT model, right? On the, when Bitcoin was growing, when the crypto was growing, we come up with new innovation or business model. DAT is one of those. And now, on the down cycle, how will DAT, work towards a different cycle? So, we are all going through all these things. We have innovations and market adoption, and then we have to go through different cycle, and we have to test the products, whether they have a market. So I think strategy is going through ups and downs currently. So whether DAT is a proven model, we need more time to look into it. One challenge, right? And we need more innovation in new products. Next challenge is, I think a lot of people are talking about this, quantum, and whether there will be a threat to crypto or crypto-related products. I actually done a visit to most of the quantum researchers in Hong Kong and some in mainland China. If you ask me, I think we're at least 5 years away. But if we're working on this, on the cryptography side, I think this is something we'll have to put some thought into, if this is going to happen in 5 to 10 years. So what the industry will respond to the crypto development. We're talking about 500,000 qubits, but most of the computing now is only 100 to 1,000 qubits. So we're still away from quantum, doing that. But we have these Google research report, which stir a lot of discussions in the market, because it says that, with the quantum development, it will break through the Bitcoin algorithm, because that will take around 10 minutes. And, quantum can go through all the cryptography in 9 minutes. So things like that. But, we are still there to see whether that will happen. I think there are still a few years away before that will actually threaten, the industries or the crypto market. And, the challenges we also have is whether we have common infrastructure and common regulatory regime. Because like in Hong Kong, like in the US, many countries, they are going through their own regulatory system. They are going through their own legislations. And whether they are comparability and whether they are comparable and they can talk to each other, and the product issue in one jurisdiction, whether they can be traded in different jurisdictions, how do you have these as a global market? This is also one thing that, from some of the people that suggest are things we have to deal with, to have a common infrastructure and, a bridge between different jurisdictions and different regimes, because no one wants to just sell product in one country. You want it to be connected to different parts of the world. So this is also one challenge that we have. And this is the flywheel that we want to see. That is, when you have a complete infrastructure, when you have clarity in the market, when you have connectivity between jurisdictions, and then you issue products, you get investors. Investors come in, they prosper from the investments that they have, and then more product will come out. And this is like a positive flywheel that we want to see in Hong Kong. We have the regime, and then we will have the connectivity with different markets. You will have to issue new products, And products, if you hit the right one, you get market traction, people come into the market, and you recycle into other innovators coming into the market. So this is the positive flywheel that we want to see here. So final thoughts, things that we have to do next. I personally think, more products into the market, more clear definitions of the regulatory regime of these products. How does it get approved? The process of it being approved. Market participants, who can buy what, right? I think we have already started work on that, on the classification of products for professional investors and retail investors, and how do we deal with technology innovations, as I mentioned, quantum, and new products and new innovations, how they get adopted by the market. So we also need developers in Hong Kong. We need to get more tech developers in Hong Kong. I've been reinitiating that for the last 3-4 years. So basically, this is what my sum up for the last 3 years feelings on these festival and what my view on the future for development of Web3 in Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chiu, for your wonderful sharing. And please take a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, our perspective now expands globally. We are very delighted to have with us Professor Michael Fokenda, Professor of Finance at the University of Maryland, who will share with us his analysis on digital access from a global financial and academic standpoint. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please put our hands together to welcome Professor Fokenda.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Let me start by saying that while I've been a finance professor for the last 25 years, I have twice had the privilege to serve at the U.S. Department of Treasury, including most recently as the Deputy Secretary, the number 2 to Secretary Bessent last year. As this conference opened, the message that I would like to step back and convey to all of you is that the innovation on display at this conference is literally changing the world. While much of the next couple of days will focus on the incredible technological innovations that are underway, my goal is to articulate the economic use cases of this technology and how they have the potential to improve people's lives everywhere. I remind people regularly that billions of people on our planet still engage through commerce through the use of paper currency. Money can be lost, it can be stolen, it can be burned, but more importantly, is the frequency with which money is devalued through bad government policy. What the technology being showcased at this conference offers is the chance to bring modern financial services to the unbanked and the unbrokered. It means moving away from physical money to more secure ways of financially governing our lives. The ultimate goal being faster, cheaper, and safer ways of realizing commerce. For the last number of years, government policy in the United States hindered the development and deployment of digital assets. Fearful of the disruption that might occur and the challenges of the unknown, innovation in this space was ceded to other parts of the world. That changed in early 2025 with the inauguration of President Trump. He ordered an immediate, comprehensive report about the status and opportunities that exist in the digital asset space. We at Treasury led that work, working closely with the White House, the Congress, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Commodity Future Trading Commission. The actions taken in the last year demonstrate our commitment to upgrading the United States regulatory environment to harness the potential that technology futurists foresaw years ago. Last July, President Trump signed the Genius Act, the first major piece of legislation in the United States that addresses stablecoins. In my mind, the Genius Act reasserted U.S. leadership in the payment space and worked to further the dollar as the world's reserve currency. This legislation paved the way for industry to continue investing and innovating now that they know there is certainty in the legal environment. Why does all of this matter? Imagine what foreign remittances will look like if the world adopts stablecoins. No longer are we sending electronic messages on SWIFT representing a series of correspondent bank transactions being underway that will get money overseas in days. What the distributed ledger technology on a global blockchain offers is the settling of that same transaction in minutes at a fraction of the cost. When I first saw this technology 7 years ago, when I was serving as the chief economist at the US Treasury, I remember thinking that this is not the time to be Western Union. Imagine hastening payment clearance of international trade because cargo verification on a blockchain results in instantaneous payment for that cargo anywhere in the world. There is no reason for ships to sit idle while they wait payment while we have global deployment of modern payment systems that are safer and cheaper. Imagine setting up retail payment systems in countries where poverty and lack of infrastructure previously meant most of their citizens lacked access to a bank account and instead funded most of their purchases with cash. Rather than relying on cash in a non-existent banking system, transactions can now be carried out digitally on any number of devices. Today, the biggest competition banks face in many parts of the world are coming from cell phone companies. Indeed, in some countries, the banks are the cell phone companies. Likewise, imagine eliminating the mismanagement and corruption of some central banks whose gross negligence has resulted in runaway inflation that devalues the labor of workers in countless countries. Blockchain technology and digital assets, including stablecoins, enable customers and retailers to much more readily abandon failing local currencies for more stable global ones that better store value and better facilitate timely exchange. Historically, the lack of physical currency from more stable regimes has enabled countries to create a monopoly on how exchange takes place in their country, and their management of that currency locked people into failed payment systems. Moving to digital money eliminates local supply constraints and no longer means that people are confined to seeing the fruits of their labor squandered by rampant inflation caused by central bank mismanagement. Both consumers and retailers will willfully move to such a situation. This is the promise of digital assets and stablecoins. This is a glimpse of the future that guided my efforts to get the Genius Act to the President's desk last July. What did that legislation do? First and foremost, our goal in the Genius Act is to generate confidence in digital money by generating the credibility of one-for-one exchange with physical currency. People will not adopt new technology unless they are convinced that they can always revert to something that they have trusted for decades. Even though the goal is to move away from physical money, it does need to continue to exist as people gain confidence in digital money. In the developed world, people still put their money in bank accounts and engage in the predominant form of their financial transactions through the bank accounts, but they always know that they have the option of reverting back to physical currency. That option is what provides faith in the banking system. We must do the same with stablecoins. That way, when we generate that confidence, the way that we generate that confidence is by putting restrictions on what backs stablecoins so that a one-for-one exchange is maintained. Post-Genius, digital money must be backed by assets that cannot lose value. We therefore limited stablecoin reserve assets to very short-term US Treasury securities, deposits at the Federal Reserve, other high-quality liquid assets, and deposits at insured institutions. These are securities that are backed by the US government, so no matter what happens in the economy or the geopolitical world, the issuer's reserve assets can easily be converted into dollars at full value and ensure full redemption of the stablecoin. If we're going to offer substitutes for money, they need to have matching value to physical money at all points in time, no matter what happens. Second, we maintain privacy rights by ensuring that stablecoins and blockchains offered to US citizens are done by private institutions who have the incentive to constantly upgrade the technology and the service that they offer. We banned central bank digital currencies. What that means is that before the government can see how a private individual in the United States uses their money, they would need to follow constitutionally mandated procedures for obtaining a warrant. The stablecoin account is not on a government ledger whose value can be blocked because a particular administration does not like who the depositor is, or what legal industry they operate in. Under both the Obama and the Biden administrations, we saw companies in the cryptocurrency space, as well as individuals, be debanked for political reasons, and that is why there is enormous resistance in the United States to the creation of a CBDC. Instead, we legislated a private party stablecoin system with issuers that are regulated like banks. Third, we applied anti-money laundering standards to stablecoins. The global financial system has made extraordinary strides in the last few decades, reducing financial flows for illicit activities. None of us want to see vast expansion of terrorist arms sales, easy flow of money for drug smuggling, human trafficking, tax evasion, or other forms of illegal behavior. By making sure that every entry point into the financial system requires full identification, we are in a much better position to stop payments that go towards illicit behavior. Many leaders in the previous administration speculated that cryptocurrencies were solely a means to undo the progress that has been made on monitoring and prohibiting financial flows for illicit acts. In my view, a very small fraction of crypto transactions are done for nefarious purposes, but this technology will only receive widespread adoption that results in the betterment of the lives of billions if global governments trust that its usage is nearly entirely benevolent. For the developers in this room, please work with policymakers to implement safeguards against actors with ill intent. I know it hampers some of your work. I know it partially slows things down and raises cost. But you aren't looking to make it easier for cartels trafficking in human misery to profit off of that misery. Like me, you see the potential of digital assets to speed transaction clearance, lower costs, and enhance security. Policymakers are willing to work with you to make their requirements less onerous. But we cannot allow places like North Korea to fund their nuclear weapons program off of a legally obtained cryptocurrency. Finally, passing the Genius Act credibly conveyed that the United States once again seeks to lead the world in financial innovation. Gone are the days when we feared the displacement or creative destruction that might come with the technological breakthroughs that we are seeing here at this conference. Instead, we are embracing Web3 and the future of finance in order to maintain and enhance the dollar in facilitating global trade. We know that we only have a seat at the table to participate in international standard discussions if we are creating such standards at home. We know that the future global reserve currency is a digital one, and U.S. stablecoins are the means by which the U.S. not only retains its foundational reserve asset, but as Secretary Bessent has remarked, there are potentially trillions of dollars in additional demand for U.S. Treasury securities because of the adoption of U.S.-denominated stablecoins. Even with the progress we made last year, there is still much work to be done. While we succeeded in generating a consensus around stablecoins that resulted in the President signing the Genius Act last July, we have not extended that regulatory certainty into the rest of the digital asset ecosphere. The House of Representatives passed the Clarity Act last year, and the Senate continues to debate that act, and we're hopeful that it will get passed and sent to the President's desk for signature this year. Stablecoins enable potentially billions of unbanked around the world to move to more secure, faster, and cheaper retail transacting away from physical money. Clarity would bring that same access to the unbrokered. Again, imagine a world where more of our assets could be securitized or tokenized and traded. A world where exchanging those ownership stakes does not require a high-cost brokerage model, but instead were facilitated on blockchain technology. How many billions of people on our planet have been blocked from accessing investment vehicles that provide for the accumulation of wealth? Access to stock and bond markets should be democratized, and realizing opportunities of diversified wealth creation will unlock capital for innovators and facilitate saving and investment options that better smooth people's spending over their lifetimes. Secretary Bessent recently wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal calling on the Senate to pass Clarity to do for the unbrokered what we did in Genius for the unbanked. Like with stablecoins, We do need to put in place rules on market structure, investor protection, and anti-money laundering provisions that retain the best parts of our existing financial architecture, but at lower cost while increasing speed and security. We're also making sure that our banking system works collaboratively with the digital asset space. Our banking agencies have removed so-called reputation risk as a means by which backward-looking regulators punish innovation in the digital asset space. Obviously, there are risks associated with this new technology, but we should not use our banking system for political reasons to go after lawful technologies that might be scary. Instead, we need to create the appropriate security guardrails and update our regulatory and supervisory processes for the current financial and technological environment. Our banking system also cannot thwart the evolution of payment systems as a way to protect their existing monopoly. It is true that we must fully understand the architecture of these new systems so that in times of macroeconomic stress, we know what to monitor and where the bottlenecks are located. But that does not mean blocking this technology. Competition is what realizes the best outcome for people, not out-of-date rules that protect incumbents. We cannot allow the fear of change to lock in outdated modalities while the rest of the world leaps into the financial future. When I was getting my PhD 25 years ago, nobody was doing research in the payment system. We thought we understood how banks operate and that the interesting parts of finance were topics like security interests, risk management, and how tax policy could encourage more investment. Today, there is no more exciting research in financial economics than the practical applications of the technological innovation being highlighted at this conference. Just as my fellow financial economists have had to learn more about technology to navigate the new financial world that futurists are creating, I implore the innovators and entrepreneurs gathered here to understand the economics and finance of what you are deploying. The technology is fascinating in and of itself, but to realize its full potential, we must always ask, what is the use case? What existing activity is being replaced? And what features of the existing regulatory structure will inevitably flow into the new architecture being created? Consumer protections are going to need to be retained. Transactor identity is essential to mitigate the use of this technology for criminal endeavors. User education will need to occur. And if this new technology becomes critical infrastructure, governments will insist on overseeing the systemic risk that such centrality may cause. Your work has certainly grabbed the attention of policymakers, and it is incumbent on us policymakers to work with you to facilitate your innovation and realize its potential. As I opened with, billions of people will likely benefit from this work. I ask for your assistance and your patience in educating us policymakers on the nuances of your technology. But at the same time, I implore you to educate yourselves on where this technology fits into the existing economy and why we therefore project the concerns onto this technology that we do. Working together, I see this technology and artificial intelligence as the most important innovations that we will be benefiting from over the next decade. Thank you for including me in your conference, and I look forward to meaningful dialogue over the next few years.
Thank you. Please join me in giving a big round of applause for Professor Fokenda. Thank you, Professor, for that global perspective. I'm sure we've all gained insights from the session just now. And ladies and gentlemen, gentle reminders for everyone here. This forum provides simultaneous interpretation service. Please be advised to scan the QR code for the translation service on your catalog and listen to translated presentations and speeches via your mobile devices. 提提大家，本次活动采用绿色的线上同传服务，请扫描同传二维码即可获取同传服务。Also, you can collect stamps by visiting the booths. When you collect a certain number of stamps, you can claim a gift at the information desk. The number of gifts are limited. They will be provided on a first-come, first-served basis. 另外，在会看手册的赞助上 logo 页参展上均有一个盖章处。活动期间完成集章任务， 即可到咨询台领取对应的礼品一份，每人每天限领一次，数量有限，限到限得。Ladies and gentlemen, following these diverse viewpoints from policy, regulation, and academia, we'll now delve into a critical discussion on shaping Asia's digital finance landscape. It is time for our panel discussion, Balancing Regulation and Innovation, Forging a Sustainable Digital Finance Ecosystem in Asia. And without further ado, please welcome our moderator, Mr. David Lee, Chairman of the Global FinTech Institute. And joining him on stage are our distinguished panelists, Mr. Duncan Chill, Legislative Council Member Hong Kong, Mr. Eric Chan, Chief Public Mission Officer of Hong Kong Cyberport, Mr. Seiji Yuki, Executive Managing Director of the Japan Virtual and Crypto Asset Exchange Association and Japan Crypto Asset Business Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a big round of applause to our moderator and our panelists. And now I'll pass the floor to our moderator, David. David, over to you now.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a very, very interesting morning for all of us who are over here and those who are watching the live telecast. We heard so much from the Hong Kong regulators and policymakers, and also Duncan, who made a very good speech about where Hong Kong is going. And I think the response from the market, I can see that it is extremely positive. And we are very glad today to have three leaders in the ecosystem builder, and they need no introduction. I think you know who they are. And I think what we want to do this morning is to go deeper into what we have heard about this morning and to discuss some of the issues so that we have a better understanding of where the entire ecosystem is going. So maybe I can start with Duncan today. Congratulations. I think you have built the ecosystem together with your team and the regulators to today, and we have seen a lot of progress. And this morning, we've certainly seen a lot of very interesting announcements from the new regulation, the drafting of new laws, and that's about to come, and working on various areas, including RWA, stable coins, and we see licenses are being issued for stable coins. We see liquidity issues are being addressed in the very near future. And you have made a very interesting sharing earlier on. Could you sort of give us an idea, since Hong Kong has made so many important progress in the digital asset regulation, from your perspective, what should the next policy priority? There are so many policies and regulations that we're looking at. If Hong Kong wants to be not just licensing jurisdiction, but a genuine hub for issuance, settlement, and real adoption in a stay fast, not in a rush as we heard this morning.
I think we've talked enough about legislations and regulations, so the whole morning we were focusing on that. But you know, as a legislator, I represent the technology and innovation sector, so I always want to have a balance between the regulator and the innovators. So what we do before is sort of, you know, we understand the demand for the industry, the digital asset industry, that we need a regulatory regime to actually provide a safe trading investment ground in Hong Kong. And we understand this is a trend globally, that we have to, you know, keep pace with what's happening globally. So that's the way inside. And we will have a few legislation coming forward. So this is the legislation progress. But, you know, what I want to see more is on the innovation side, because, you know, over the last 10 years and then plus years in the crypto market, you know, there has been many innovation in the product side. And now we're talking about tokenizing different traditional financial products, securities, bonds, you know, commodities, and this, et cetera. Of course, we have to leverage the technology itself, but I believe there will always be innovations. So if you ask me, what I want to see is how do we have ways to lead in more new products, new business model being created in Hong Kong, and how the regulators will deal with these new products that will be created. That's why I mentioned about the exemptions, in some of the bills the US that has laid down. So things like that, these are very important, that we have room for innovations while we are providing a complete regulatory regime in the systems. I think once you have innovations and new products, all these will follow. You mentioned about the infrastructure, the liquidity, the contractual relationship between the banks and the financial institutes and the users and the buyers, investors, etc. These are all, I think, consequences. If you have the cost, which is good product, good investment product, safe, people want to invest in to keep safekeep, and all these will follow. So what I want to see is how we lead in innovations into the next few years into the development of the digital asset markets in Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, Duncan. I think you have given us a very clear direction. It has to be market-driven, market demand-driven innovation, in the sense that we can't just have any ideas or white paper and then you hope that it will take off. And once you have the right product, whether it's insurance, whether it's a business model that works, then I think the rest will set in place. And you have done a lot of work to set the groundwork, the legislation, they are all there. Now it's waiting for the ecosystem to respond, for the entrepreneurs to respond. And that's where I come to Eric. Eric, at Cyberport, I see a lot of innovation. I've seen how Cyberport has grown to today with a lot of significant changes. And what Duncan is talking about is about use cases. So have you seen any of those startups? Have you seen any of the sandboxes or any of the projects has gone to the stage where it's ready for commercialization and mass adoption?
Okay, thanks, David, and thanks for having me today. Well, last year, Cyberport actually launched a pilot program. It's what we call a blockchain and digital asset subsidy, pilot subsidy program, in order to drive more impactful projects like RWA tokenization and probably stablecoin payments and also decentralized identity, that type of things, right? So 9 projects actually joined the program, and half of them are involved in RWA tokenizations and related projects. So I believe that would be a real potential for many of them to get commercialized. And the idea of launching that program is really to drive not just POC, proof of concept, but beyond POC to commercialization. That's the whole objective of the program. And we're actually seeing many of those successfully implemented, and they must have addressed some industry pain points, right? For instance, one of the projects was related to automation of fund administration in order to lower costs and reduce reconciliation errors, right? That type of things. And for those that tokenize traditional financial instruments, it would be to create more commercial angle. If tokenization could create like additional utility for the financial instrument, for instance, lending or borrowing, or to engage further users, that type of things. So we want to see actually more real life use case to be tested out and then to be commercialized through this kind of a push. And we have already gathered over 300 Web3 companies in our community, and we have been encouraging many of them to participate in this kind of things, so that there is actually more cross collaborations. And we see a lot of them actually working with asset managers or large corporates, in exploring various different innovations, to streamline, automate, and improve the industry processes.
Indeed, I see a lot of good projects coming out from Cyberport because I've been watching it very closely. So congratulations on some of these projects. Yuki-san, welcome to Hong Kong from Japan. I know you just arrived.
Thank you.
We have heard a lot about Hong Kong today, a lot of good news. I know there are a lot of development in Japan as well. From your perspective, could you give us a little bit more about what's happening in Japan in the area of Web3?
Now, recently, there's a big change in Japanese legislations. At this moment, stablecoin and the crypto is under financial service law. But 10 days ago, April 10th, Japanese FSA submits a new bill to the Diet. That means, crypto law is going to change the Financial Instrument and Exchange Act. That is a very big change, because if it's admitted as under the Financial Act, that means crypto is admitted by the government and also politicians to be. They admitted every nation can invest the crypto by himself. That is very big approved. That means also at this moment only BASP is treating crypto, but from now some exchange also will deal with crypto. The big change, but hurdle is very high. So some of Japanese BASP will give up to do the business, I think. On the same side, stable coins also, still in financial service law. That means everybody can do that. It's different.
So there are a lot of development, and the ground is set. Now just waiting for the ecosystem to respond.
Yeah. So if many Chinese companies try to invade the Japanese market, but if they try to into Japanese market, they have to get a big license of that is Japanese Financial Instrument and Exchange Act.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yuki-san. Let's come back to Duncan. Let's go deeper from the discussion this morning, especially for RWA and tokenization. Where do you see the most important bottlenecks today? Whether it's legal structure, distribution, settlement, secondary liquidity, tax accounting treatment, or something else? Or you just mentioned this morning about responsible innovation in the quantum space, talent, and are there bottlenecks now that we need to look at, and as ecosystem builder that we need to spend more efforts on?
Yeah, I think there are always bottlenecks in many different areas. And I wouldn't say legislation, because we always follow behind the markets. And I think from the market side, adoption from traditional financial institutes is also slow. Of course, you see that we have two stablecoin issue to banks in Hong Kong. That's one way. But in terms of other side of the build-up, in terms of infrastructures, I think from the financial institutions, traditional financial institutions in Hong Kong are still moving quite slow. We see some, let's say, digital banks, they were the more adventurous and more pioneer in terms of adoptions of the products and building up the infrastructures and trying out different products to their users and clients. So that's also one thing we'll have to explore. But I think everything is tied together. As I mentioned, coming with a new product that will be widely accepted is definitely something we should try on. I personally think, let's say, tokenized gold and things like that are things that could be rightly circulated and provide a kind of transparency, safety, and also it could be useful for investors and holders into that kind of tokenized products. So to try it out on new tokenized product, I think is also another things we have to work on further.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, Duncan, that everything is actually set on the stage, right? And you can see that US, they have the Clarity Act, they have Genius Act. You can see international organizations like Visa, MasterCard buying into payment rails of stable coins. You can see banks in the US. You can see a lot of banks around the world all beginning to power on to RWA and tokenization. And the regulations are not an issue as compared to 10 years ago when we have all this Web3 conference by Wan Xiang in Shanghai and then in Hong Kong. We have progressed a lot. And then it's just a matter of time now for institution. And clearly America is taking the lead now, which we heard from Professor earlier on about how the OCC has allowed the banks to do stable coins and solving the problem of on-ramp and off-ramp for a lot of founders. So coming back to Cyberport, we now look at the other side, because what Duncan talking about are the blue chip Web2 companies that are venturing into Web3. But if you are Web3 founders, what is it that you need to do to get the banking support, regulatory clarity, enterprise demand, compliance talent, distribution, and deeper liquidity, because you are from the startup perspective?
So I guess technology companies of different nature actually may have different needs, right? For instance, infrastructure players, they are there for building up their ecosystems. So they will probably see, talents related to, technical stuff and also business development will be key, for them. But, for businesses that are, heavily regulated, such as, virtual asset trading platforms or any other RWA-related businesses, I guess, regulatory clarity is very important, as our previous speakers already said so. And the respective regulatory costs would be also an important factor they would see. Because even those who do not get the license themselves, they will need to pay, the partners, to support the businesses, right? So if there's a high regulatory cost involved in that, that will probably, hurt, the businesses and even make the businesses not viable, in a sense. So, as a flagship, digital technology hub of Hong Kong, Cyberport, we have a lot of companies coming from different parts of the world. We already have, as I said, over 300 companies coming from 19 countries and regions, right? And they are here, to potentially, because they see the clarity, the regulatory clarity in Hong Kong, and they believe that they could build a business here. And then we try our best, to build a comprehensive ecosystem and a support system, ranging from organizing a lot of demo days, business matching, investor matching. We even have our own VC funds that we invest into some of those companies. We want to make sure they fully understand the regulatory requirement and compliance requirement. So we work very closely with our policymakers on that and become also the voice from the market. And by fostering all these multidimensional collaborations, we hope that we will like to, build a good tech clusters. And I guess at the end of the day, they are here for businesses. And we have to make sure that they can build a profitable and sustainable businesses, using Hong Kong as a platform.
So thank you very much, Eric. I think you raised a very important point for any ecosystem builder, especially conversation with regulators in Asia. Because if you look at America, SEC Chairman Paul Atkins and Hester Peirce and so on, in the safe harbor and so on, they are now trying to reduce. They have a lot of clarity and they reduce the cost of compliance. Because it will be an irony to see compliant financial institutions, the profit is not that high as compared to unlicensed institutions, which is very, very profitable. I think regulators don't want to see that either, because when that happens, you have a lot of good institutions being driven to the gray area. I think as conversation with regulators, I think there's something important. How do we have compliance costs being lowered? Is there going to be some subsidy? We want to have a stay fast progress. But compliance cost is a major issue for startups. How do we have a different level of compliance requirement Is there a subsidy that we can help them? I think maybe as an ecosystem builder, we need to think about how to have a conversation with the Asia regulators as a whole. It's not possible to have a harmonization of regulation, but I think this is an important issue to promote responsible innovation. We do not want to drive all these young people going into the gray area and to avoid being regulated. We want them to be part of the system. So I think this is a very important issue that we need to think about how to have a conversation with the regulators. Yeah. So going to Japan, this morning I read from my WeChat that Singapore is competing in Hong Kong, Hong Kong is competing with Singapore. To me, there's no competition. We are all in the ecosystem, we are all building it together with Dubai, with America, with Europe, with the MiCA, with the Clarity Act, and so we are all in one ecosystem. How do you see the Japan approach to this? Because you are also one of the important ecosystem builder. How do you see Japan in this approach? Is this a competition approach, or it is a working together, part of the nodes and is the blockchain philosophy that we have?
Yeah, a few years ago, there's a lot of Japanese startup Web3 companies. But because of very strict rule in Japan, more than 200 companies escaped from Japan to Singapore, unfortunately. And recently, Singapore rule is also strict, and they moved to Dubai or some places. So we are discussing about this is trouble because we are talking about some congressperson, and they understand that situations. So they try to change the rule. And they asked the FSA, why don't you change a little bit? So first of all, we changed the tax rules for institutions 2 years ago. Now we are discussing the individual tax rule for crypto. That will be also decided this year. So maybe first January for 28th, new tax rule is in Japan. So maybe such kind of new startup guys are recently coming back to Japan little by little. That's a tendency.
Yeah. So I think this is interesting in that it's difficult to have harmonization of regulation because we have a lot of closed-door meeting. Most regulators would not like to have harmonization of regulation, and they differentiate themselves by tax incentive and so on, which I think is a very interesting approach because different business model will have certain advantages in different jurisdictions, but we are all one ecosystem. So I think that is something that we should all work on as one big family, even though there's no harmonization of regulation, but we should attract different type of businesses to our own shore to further the ecosystem.
Today I'm on behalf of JVCA and JCBA. JVCA is a self-regulatory organization approved by FSA. On the other hand, JCBA is more than 160 companies gathering, law firms, accounting firms, and BAPs and startup. JCBA has a MOU agreement with all over the world, Europe, US, and many Asia's associations. So we are discussing, exchanging our opinions to make some kind of conclusions. That's we are doing at this moment.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you very much, Yuki-san. Back to you, Duncan. I know, you mentioned that when there is a good fundamental, then liquidity will actually come into the picture because that reflects the fundamental value and so on. But in reality, sometimes we find that, I've been in the market for a long time, from equity to property market to crypto. And one thing that always puzzles me is that it's a chicken and egg problem, right? If we don't have enough liquidity, there's no participants. But if there's too much liquidity, there's a lot of speculation. We need to have a balance. But somehow or other, we need to have some low level of liquidity for RWA, for stable coins, which I think this morning we heard from the regulators that there are plans to do that. What else can we do, Duncan, to to ensure that when we launch our RWA, even is a very good fundamental, that we have a minimum liquidity to reflect at least the fundamental value.
Yeah, I think this is actually, I think a lot of people have interest in the RWA market and tokenize everything. But, the big question is whether there is liquidity, whether there's trading, whether the price is fairly reflected, in the way it's traded. So in the market, we see in the crypto market that, market making or liquidity providing is actually one of the components. A lot of providers in the market provide these services. And I think this is something that we have to discuss in Hong Kong, because if you look at the stock market in Hong Kong, we don't actually allow, market making. And that, in different markets in the world, they will have different guidelines and regulations on market making. But in Hong Kong, we also don't have market makers in the stock markets. So that's something I think we have to look into. And I understand, as the Eric from SFC just mentioned earlier, we will have likely at least two bills that we have to discuss in Hong Kong. One is the virtual asset dealing. One is the virtual asset custody. So I think within the virtual asset dealing, one of the things that we will touch on is liquidity providing. So whether that will fall into the regime that you have to be licensed to provide liquidity in the market. So I think that is yet to be discussed. I think that will come later this year. And then we will table that at Legislative Council. And we'll see whether that will be included in the VA dealing or some other of the licensing regime that we will go through later.
Yeah. So indeed, we are seeing a lot of market makers from traditional moving into crypto. I don't see any specific crypto market making license anywhere in the world at this moment. It'll be interesting to see if Hong Kong has something of that form, and then we'll attract a lot of participants. And then come to cyberports, right? So for stablecoins and tokenized money, compliant custody, trusted identity, data, Oracle infrastructure, or secondary, how do you advise, any of the startup to look out for market access as also as liquidity? Following up from Duncan, my questions to Duncan.
Well, I guess, trusted identity is the foundation, right? For any RWA or payment projects that want to scale, you need to know who is participating, right? Under what permission or under what compliance rules. And I guess institutional tokenization models increasingly rely on permission-based KYCL, AML, and compliance by design rather than purely anonymous participation these days, and which is why identity sits at the base of the stack. And the second, I guess the biggest issue is really the second market access, because liquidity ultimately determines whether a tokenized asset could become a real market product. And a product may have strong structuring, sound compliance and reliable technology, but without an active secondary market investor, will hesitate to participate, because of entry, exit, and all this price discovery, remain limited, and in practice, issuance is only the first step. I guess whether people are have real adoptions comes when the asset could be traded efficiently and distributed more broadly and supported by a market structure that gives investors confidence to commit capital, right, investment. And I guess it's also important to realize that the role of RWA solution providers, we could actually execute across the whole RWA lifecycle, and in practice, success actually comes from having an ecosystem, that can connect assets, origination, structuring, tokenization, compliance, custody, distribution, and ongoing servicing in the whole workable model. And this is what makes these firms so important, that they turn all these RWA into investable products, and by coordinating and activating all the enabling layers for that reason.
Thank you very much, Eric, for sharing your view about ensuring that you have to take care of the compliance costs, market demand, liquidity, organizing with the ecosystem to ensure your project takes off. Yuki-san, what about in Japan? How do they view market making? Are there any special rules or incentives for the market making industry to build up?
Yeah, it's very, difficult questions. As far as market making is concerned, the BASP, now, of course, BASP introduced the market making system, but from the security point of view, sometimes it's illegal from the Japanese law. So now we are discussing about the FSA. What is the middle? It's not so strict, not so, narrow. So we are just discussing with the FSA. But it takes maybe 3-4 months from now. So I can't say about anything about this.
Yeah, I think we need to think about what is responsible market making. I think that's key because it's part of the infrastructure of a new financial products that the market needs. I want to stretch this even further, right? I was a hedge fund manager for 20 over years. When we first started, one of the reasons why we started, and hedge fund was like a bad word when I first started because it's short market and so on, but really that comes from the university endowment fund. It's actually very quant-based. It's very risk management based. And we as hedge fund managers on the market neutral activities, we generated a lot of volume for the underlying instrument to create the liquidity. I want to stretch this further. Now that Canada, America is talking about prediction market, poly market, talking about Kalsha and so on. These are all banned in Singapore. You can't even go onto the website. But if you take the view of a hedge fund role in the market as prediction market, take away the gambling, take away the insider trading advantage trades, like Canada, focusing purely on generating the liquidity and hedging for the underlying RWA and stable coins. I want to ask three of you, what are your views? I know this is a very difficult question, but I want to push the envelope further. What are your views, Duncan?
It's interesting you raise a point about responsible market making. I think in terms of market participant, there's nothing like, it's difficult to say responsible something, right? It's only from participant, it's only what is allowed and what is not allowed, right? So people will always push to the limit, what is allowed to do. And, because every company participants, they have to think about profitability in terms of, participating in the market. So they could be responsible for sustainability, ESR, things like that. But in terms of the product, I think it's always about what is allowed and not allowed. So this is important for the legislation and regulations to come in. So I think, market making, as Yuki-san just mentioned, something will be debated, in many different markets. And, we got to see how it develops. But you go to the prediction market, right? So you're talking about prediction market, I would say poly market. And it's interesting because, Hong Kong, in terms of betting, gaming, there's only one license provider, which is the Hong Kong Jockey Club. So the Hong Kong Jockey Club provide the betting and gaming service in Hong Kong for horse racing and, football bets. And we had some discussions a few months back about basketball, betting in Hong Kong. But, we are still in different views in the market. So I think the legislators are still thinking about whether, we should open up more options in bettings and gamings in Hong Kong, whether, the implications to the general publics here, to the youngsters here. So that's something that we have concerns on. And so with my own estimations, I think the prediction market or poly market will be difficult to establish in Hong Kong. I think definitely we're not ready. I personally think we are not ready for, opening that up in Hong Kong yet. So I think we'll see, how things goes in different countries.
Yes, I think there's just too many issues. One bad apple will spoil the entire ecosystem. I think there's a right approach. Stay fast, looking into issues, but we have to look at it and research. Eric, you have any comments on that?
Well, as you know, Cyberport is an ecosystem builder, right? So we have a lot of innovators, in our community. And while, we do not, actively or directly participate in the market, but we want to become the market voice, and channel that voice to the regulators. And that's why we have been working so closely with the policymakers like the regulators. And we have actually done a lot of sandbox, with Hong Kong MASFCs and many others regulators. So I guess the idea is, all these various different innovations and maybe potential, new products that could come out, right? They get a early advice, from the regulator of the viability before they invest further into it, right? And back to my point is, at the end of the day, it's a business, and there's always this calculations between risk and return, and we want to make sure everybody is happy about the environment, and we have a good environment for them, to prosper. Right?
Yeah, very good advice. So as a startup, you have to choose the path of the least resistance, so that because you have to worry about bottom line, you got to explain to your investors, and you have to work with everybody. What about Yuki-san? Do you have any comments on that? Yeah.
Back to your opinions. I understand what you say. Market making is very needed in emerging market because 30 years ago I was a hedge fund gatekeeper also in the US. So in emerging market it's very needed. But sometimes we are talking about it's needed, but sometimes it's against unfair trading. That's that's the point. That's why we are discussing with the FSA right now. And also, you're talking about the prediction market, right? Prediction market is considered as a illegal gambling in Japan. But only one exception. That is, if that product is under derivative of securities, its product is under, including derivative in securities market. Only that case in Japan, it's allowed it.
Yeah, that raised a very interesting point, because I'm also a chairman of an exchange, the Apex Futures Exchange and Clearing. So we are one of the 4 exchanges in Singapore that actually have a lot of members trading. I do notice, like even in the US, CFTC and so on, there's some discussion. The reason being that we have all the futures option that you need to have margin upfront and so on. But if prediction market is on the same instrument, you don't have to roll over. There's just an and. You don't have to have the margin trading. So there's a lot of advantage if you treat it as an options or futures for the financial market, not for betting like horses or any, just purely on or allowing insider trading. So those are the new things that are discussed in the US. And Canada is a very different, very interesting model that do away with all the bettings and so on. I think it's worthwhile for us to take a look at that. But we have about 3 minutes. I want each one of you 1 minute. As we gather here next year, what would you like to see how the market has developed? Duncan.
I think the interest, we're looking from the participants this year, even though, the market has ups and downs, and we see the interest is still here, very strong. I think the blockchain tokenized development of security products, of digital assets is just at the beginning. So I would suppose we want to see more innovations. We want to see more new points of interest next year that people will come into, discuss. Every year we see innovations. So what I want to see is we want to have new innovations now collaborating with, let's say, AI and all other technologies. And, we keep innovating on the digital assets. That's what I want to see.
Thank you. Eric.
From our community, I don't see a short of innovation, but what I want to see is to see more global capital, continue to coming, to build a sustainable and progressive, digital asset market here in Hong Kong. And we are here to welcome, all the Web3 players to Hong Kong.
Thank you, Eric. Yuki-san.
Yeah, I think also innovation is very important. And we, JCBA, supported startup companies to discuss what is the good conclusions and submit to the government and also politicians. So we are talking about it every time. On the other hand, regulation is very important also because everybody is happy about the trading. So in JBCA, we are discussing about how to regulate that. It's a half and half. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think we come to the end of this roundtable. We were here last year. We are here again this year. We see so much progress has been done in Hong Kong. Last year, I was really surprised at how much Hong Kong has done. This year, there are already 12 licenses, 2 licenses for stablecoins, and talk about more regimes that is coming is extremely positive that I'm seeing, and it's all the good work of people like Duncan, Eric, and in Japan, Yuki-san. I hope next year when we all gather here again, we will see an even more accelerated development in this space. The things that we talk about today are much more in detail, and hopefully that all of you from the ecosystem will respond to the regulators as well as people in the legislation, in the Cyberport, and also in all the associations, including Global FinTech Institute. We are here to ensure this industry will take off, but we cannot do it alone. We hope that the industry will come forward with responsible innovation and help the entire ecosystem build. And finally, I would like to thank Wan Xiang, who has been organizing, and of course Xiao Zong, have been organizing this Web3 conference back more than 10 years ago from Shanghai all the way to Hong Kong, from a very small industry to today, every regulators are talking about it. So once again, can you put your hands together to thank this esteemed panel? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, our panelists and moderator, for the brilliant discussion. Please remain on stage for a photo together. When our panelists and moderator, please come forward for a photo together to commemorate this very special moment. And when you're ready, let's squeeze in a bit and let's look towards the middle for a photo. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And another one. Thumbs up for the photo. Thumbs up. Lovely. Thank you. A big round of applause for David, Duncan, Eric, and Seiji for the enlightening and dynamic discussion just now. Thank you very much. And please take a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we're absolutely privileged to bring together world thought leaders, innovators, experts here today to share their expertise and experiences with us. And I'm sure we've all gained brilliant insights from them. So now, ladies and gentlemen, some gentle reminders for everyone. This forum provides simultaneous interpretation service. Please scan the QR code for the translation service on your catalog and listen to translated presentations and speeches via your mobile devices. 提提大家，本次活动采用绿色的线上同传服务，请扫描同传二维码即可获取同传服务。And now let's move on to our keynote speeches, focusing on industry practice and forward-looking research. Please welcome Mr. Fan Wenzhong, Executive Committee Member of the China Society for Finance and Banking and former Chairman of Beijing Financial Holdings Group. 我们有请中国金融学会常务理事、北京金控集团原董事长范文忠先生，掌声有请。
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's indeed a great honor to be invited to attend this Web3 conference today. As a speaker from Beijing, I'd like to share my perspective on how China sees the future development of AI technology and Web3 finance. My slides are prepared in Chinese, so I will proceed my presentation in Mandarin. 今天呢，我跟大家呢，交流的题目呢是 AI 与 Web3 的一个融合。我想大家可能都已经深切地感觉到，我们现在到了一个新的时代。这个时代呢，用我个人的比喻呢，非常类似当年的钱庄票号向现代银行业跃迁的这样一个时期。这不是一个周期的收缩和扩张，这是从一个旧的体系向新的体系的跃迁。那么尽管技术上有非常大的变动，但是金融的本质并没有变啊。我们认为金融的核心功能呢，是通过跨空间、跨时间来分配经济资源，把经济资源呢分配到那些劳动生产率高的个体身上。这样呢，能够提高全社会的劳动生产率，让未来呢有更多的产品和服务给大家消费啊，还有生产啊。那么从这个意义上来讲啊，我们现在的一个时代呢，就是一个非常有意义的时代。所以在一个方面呢，我们的金融创新啊，要解决2个问题。第一个问题就是谁是劳动生产率高的个体，在未来。我相信这个问题呢，可能在座的各位来宾啊，在最近慢慢的意识到，未来劳动生产率的高的个体不仅是人类，而且是 AI。那么另外第2个问题就是，我们什么样的一个金融体系可以适应这样的一个劳动生产率高的一个时代？其实我们今天在座的所有的来宾都能够意识到，那就是 Web3。所以用一个中国人比较熟悉的概念，我们认为 AI 是未来世界的在物理世界的先进生产力，而 Web3 呢是在数字世界的新型的生产关系。这2者结合啊，我们就创造了一个新的经济体系，我们叫去中心化的智能体的经济啊 ，decentralized agentic economy。所以今天呢，我想跟大家分享几个方面，一个就是我们到了一个非常深刻的转折点。以前的 Web3 呢世界，它是相对来讲比较清冷寂寥的啊，它只有这个主要是加密货币、智能合约啊，还有外部的人类活动，它没有一个内部真正有主体的经济体在其中活跃。但是现在呢，随着 AI 的进步，我们有了智能体，它真正的能够把我们的自主的经济主体进入到 Web3 的世界里。那么这将开启一个崭新的经济模式啊，所以我今天会简单介绍一下这个经济体的背景、它的特征、影响以及香港的机遇啊。第一个就是我们说的这个新的经济 decentralized agentic economy 啊，这样一个经济的时代背景。其实它的时代背景呢，用中国人比较容易理解，就是先进的生产力需要先进的生产关系啊。所以一个从技术来讲，我们的技术出现了巨大的飞跃，我们的生产力有了极大的提升。但是 AI 呢，它还是建立在一个互联网的传统的架构上，所以我们的数据很多还是中心化的，我们的算力呢还集中在几家大的这样科技的巨头企业中，所以跟未来我们的需求是不太匹配的。那么从另外一个角度讲，我们在过去的几年里 ，AI 的生产力进一步的提升了啊。从以前我们的生成式的大语言模型啊，它是提供一些认知，提供一些建议报告，到过去2年里，我们看到 AI agent 一个崛起，所以从建议变成行动到 action， 这样一个巨大的科技变化的效果是非常明显的。比如说我这个 PPT 就是我的助理用 AI 做的啊，以前他需要做1天。但这个现在只需要10分钟啊，就能够做一个很好的一个 PPT， 所以我们已经到了一个完全新的一个生产力的时代。但是这个时代呢，尽管我们有了 AI agent， 它是可以进行执行的，但是它面临非常多的一些限制啊。第一个就是没有独立的身份啊，它在
互联网在数字世界中，它还是一个黑户，它也没有独立的账户啊，所以它也没有办法在银行开户，它也不是一个独立的主体，所以它没有办法签订合约，它也没有办法进行我们的支付、价值交换，所以它是一个天才，劳动生产力非常强的一个个体，但是把它罩在了一个玻璃罩里。那么 Web3 就可以为这样一个新的劳动力的一个天才提供一个广阔的舞台啊。Web3 一个方面，我们提供了确定性的规则啊，不需要我们的权威中介，它可以自动的来运行。同时，我们给了它一个数据主权，它有了身份在世界里。另外就是我们进行了可以提供可编程的货币，这样它就有了一个支付工具。这些所有的生产关系啊，我们说基础设施结合在一起，就诞生了我们说的 DAE。我们认为 DAE 将在未来的世界中会越来越重要。那么 DAE 的诞生啊，其实从技术上来讲，他们相互解决了对方的问题啊，就是 AI 呢面临了很大的一个问题呢，是我有执行能力，但是我缺乏信任。在 AI 进行协同，在完成一个任务的时候，这种信任是比较难以建立的，因为他们都没有 track record 啊，一个历史的档案。那么另外一点呢 ，Web3 的一个比较重要的痛点问题就是它的门槛特别高，普惠性不足。很多的人如果想了解怎么开立一个钱包，怎么记住助记词啊，怎么使用我们的公钥私钥，这是非常困难的。所以我们的 Web3 在过去的10年里头，基本上限于一些技术圈子啊，这些比较小的范围。那么从未来来讲，区块链就为 AI 解决了它的痛点问题，就是信任的问题啊。AI 有很多的不确定性，它有黑箱，有幻觉。但是现在我们通过智能合约啊，我们的一些技术的一些承诺，区块链大大的增加了它的透明度和可信性。所以一个具有创造力的天才，现在呢它是可信的，它是可以按照规则来执行的。于是呢，我们就形成了一个可以进行价值交换的非常完美的场景。从另一个方面来讲 ，Web3 以前是少数人的我们的圈子里的啊很多的这样的一个话题和游戏，但是有了 AI agent， 我们把 Web3 的进入门槛大大的降低了。对一般人来讲，不需要知道怎么开立钱包，你让 agent 去开立就可以了。另外，我也可以给他一个简单的指令啊，把我钱包里的非稳定币资产转化为港元稳定币，把它投资到过去1年里年化收益率最高的 DeFi 的协议上。这在以前是个非常复杂的交易，但现在用 agent 可以非常方便的完成。所以在未来我们会看到整个的 Web3 它的普惠性大大的上升，门槛大大的下降。那么在最近我们注意到一些关键的技术啊出现，让二者进一步的融合啊，一个就是我们的 agent 的钱包的技术啊，最近我们出现了402的啊这样一个自主的支付协议，我们出现了 ERC8004的啊这样的一个链上身份的认证标准，这些结合在一起，就给了 AI agent 它的身份和账户。另外呢，密码学 Web3 的密码学的零知识机器学习啊，还有我们的更多的一些信任机制的建设，让 AI 的 agent 它可以进行信任的交易，每个人有一个可信的一个档案啊，比如说一个 AI agent 啊，它提供一个高质量的结果，它可以证明这是用我们先进的大模型来进行思考得出的，而不是一些普通的低劣的模型，这在以前是非常难以做到的。那么另外就是我们第3个问题，就是 DAE 它具有哪些特点和核心的特征？我们认为 DAE 它首先具有分布式的自主协作，在这个经济中权威机构是非常少的，相对于传统经济来讲。另外价值呢是高效的按需的进行流转交换的。第3是这个经济体是不断的自我的进化的，迭代的速度将会大大快于我们人类的经济 那么有几个主要特征啊。第一个特征，我们认为这个智能经济体呢，它会实现主权化。现在的 agent， 我们大体还活在大厂的服务器上，但是未来呢 ，Web3 给了这些 AI agent 一个更加民主、广阔的生活空间，他们可以生活得更自由、更长久。另外呢，这些工作呢，它可以永不停歇的经济。我们现在人类的经济还有5+2啊，每周我们还要工作5天，休息2天。在未来的 agent economy 上面，它是7乘24小的工作，因此它的生产率、产出将会大大上升。第二个特征就是在这样的一个 DAE 的交易模式中，它是原子交换，是极为高频的。我们现在全球的人口大概14亿人，我们认为在不远的将来 ，agent 的人口数量将会大大超越人类，将会有140亿、1400亿。那么这样一个大量的一个经济体的交互是非常高频的啊，比如说一个控制稳定储能的经济体跟一个生产光伏的经济体，在1个小时之内可以进行上千次的交易，这在人类呢是非常难以做到的啊，所以是一个长尾化的经济体。另外第3个特征呢，就是它的协作机制不再依靠我们传统的道德和法律。啊，我们知道最近的国际形势已经让我们认识到，道德有时候并不一定靠谱啊。人类经常会回归到丛林的法则，但是在 DAE 的这样一个经济体中，更多的 agent 是靠技术信任啊，是靠我们的博弈论。由于我们整个经济体系的透明度大大上升，那么互利共赢可能就会成为一个纳什均衡。那么这样的一个经济体啊，它的透明度啊，它的这样一个共赢的可能性是非常大的。那么最后一个第4个特征就是我们的组织模式，我们认为将会从传统的公司模式到现在的 DAO 到未来的 DAC 啊。现在大体大家都是采用了公司模式，但是我们都知道公司不是从来就有的，它也不会永远存在。那么我们有一种新的模式在 Web3 里面啊，就是我们现在的 DAO， 它是去中心化的人类的自发的智能社区。但是未来我们认为会出现一种 decentralized agentic corporation， 这是去中心化的 AI 的公司。这个公司呢，它基本上是无人的啊，只要我们规定了它的方向，它可以自动的执行，自动的创收。所以根据科斯定律来讲，它的交易成本几乎为0，所以它的摩擦啊，它的成本非常低，这样一个经济体它的效率将会非常高啊。那么第4个方面就是这样一个经济体，它对我们现在的金融体系、社会体系会有什么样的冲击？第一个冲击就是我们的劳动力市场啊。我们虽然呢，认为我们会有一段未来的转换啊，人还是有非常多的其他工作的选择的，但是在这样一个过渡时期，摩擦失业是不可避免的啊，所以最先被取代的啊是白领，这个PPT 这个 AI 做的稍微有一点问题啊，其实正确的是呢，我们这一轮的革命是先取代白领，再取代蓝领。啊，它是跟我们一般的呢不太一样，因为白领的内容最主要是知识，是我们在几十年中学习中识得的，这些知识呢大模型非常容易能够做得更好。但是我们现在做的一些体力劳动，比如说搬砖，比如说做家务，这些技能是在亿万年动物基因进化的过程中习得的，慢慢演化而来的，所以它是更困难的。但是不管怎么样，具身智能的出现也会取代蓝领，所以现在我们面临了一个巨大的冲击啊，就是我们的行业将会有很多的消失，新的行业会起来。在这个时候，我们建议政府一定要预先进行社会保障体制的改革，一定要维护社会的稳定啊，否则的话，我们在今后5到10年，我们就会看到巨大的社会的一些动荡。就像现在美国的硅谷大厂已经开始解雇成千上万的这种程序员。第2个冲击就是对金融市场的一些资产定价的冲击。在过去1年里，全球的 AI 的这种投资已经非常普遍了，所以利用 AI 的量化基金在过去1年里取得了15%以上的 非常稳定的收益。那么中国的 AI 量化基金在去年取得了平均收益率是30%。那么利用大模型的 AI， 著名的 AI， 它的基金去年取得的收益是60%。所以实际上在未来，我们一个建议就是，我们的散户真的不要去做股票买卖了，因为你的对手都是 AI， 你根本没有赢的机会啊。那么最后一个我们说的一个冲击呢，就是我们的货币体系还有伦理的冲击。现在我们的货币主体呢是传统的法币，主权法币。主权法币也不是从来就有的，所以它未来会慢慢的被我们的 AI 的数字货币这种影响力慢慢的形成巨大的挑战。另外一个就是我们的社会伦理和风险。大家知道，一个 AI 可能出现幻觉，会出现一个疯子，但是我们有一群的 AI 协作，可能会出现一群的疯子，那么对经济的这样一个杀伤力将会非常大。那么如果 AI 出现了错误，谁来负责任？是研发这个 AI 的平台呢，还是使用 AI 的人类，还是 AI 本身？其实这些问题到现在都还没有答案。那么我们已经进入到了一个新的时代。这个时代呢，香港具有巨大的机遇。首先从全球的格局来讲，美国在技术上很多方面领先，但是美国的 AI 还是出现了垄断。还是相互的，还是集中在几个中心化的大厂身上。另外，美国呢 AI 的产业化相对还是比较迟缓的。那么欧洲呢，由于监管的规则这些非常严格，所以过去几年在 Web3 在 AI 领域都面临发展的一些比较大的一些挑战。但香港是全球我们认为最有希望的城市因为我们有顶尖的传统金融的市场。我们有 Web3 合规的导向今天上午呢，陈茂波司长已经讲了未来的方向。香港我们认为的政策是非常明确的。另外，我们有自由的资本流动，还有背靠中国内地庞大的产业基础还有我们的一个市场。所以未来在香港，我们认为是最具可能性打造全球的数字金融创新中心，就是数字金融加上人工智能，另外人机经济的结算的一个枢纽。那么香港呢，现在有几个大的方向，我们认为是具有机遇的第一个就是我们的合规的 AI 资产的发行交易中心，就是2WA 的这样一个交易中心。以前呢是大陆的企业，我们到香港来上市 IPO， 这样就推动了香港这几年成为全球融资量最大的市场。在未来呢，内地的资产数字化之后到香港来上链，这也是一个巨大的空间。而且未来可能不光是人类的资产 ，AI 世界的 AI token， 还有 AI agent 的产生的收入，都可能是非常好的2WA 的一些标的。第二个方向呢，就是我们的港元稳定币，最近刚刚我们公布了2家港元稳定币的发行机构。未来如果港元稳定币加上数字人民币的这样一个协同，我们认为将在世界也会有非常大的影响力。还有就是数实互联因为香港是 Web3 的中心，而中国的内地又是全球最大的产业和贸易中心。这个数字世界与实体经济的互联，香港是非常好的窗口。所以香港具有非常好的优势，在一国两制的优势下，成为我们整个全球的数字金融创新的中心。当然，从蓝图到现实呢，我们要几个方面要做好第一个就是呢，我们还是要做好技术的一些基本建设。要把我们的研究机构、产业能够协同，这就是内地在15期间我们提出的技术创新跟产业创新的融合。第二个就是我们要完善监管体系。刚才几位呢，我们的演讲者已经提到了香港在不断的完善监管体系，我们希望能够制定一些沙箱能够把握创新跟风险的平衡。第三个就是一定要吸引全球的人才能够集聚。第四个就是要跟内地形成联动，要做好一个非常好的一个生态。有几个具体的建议最后，第一个建议就是呢，我们建议呢，香港能够开发一个自主可控的高性能的公链这个链呢是可以连接内地和连接全球的它能够夯实呢我们整个香港的 Web3 的一个技术底座。第二个就是呢，我们在监管上呢可以尝试试点有限的数字人格。 这就像我们以前做的探索的 DAO 是不是能够注册？未来呢，我们的One Person Company OPC 是不是能够在香港注册？第三个就是我们建议要积极的引进全球的 Web3加上 AI 的复合人才，这类人才是非常的稀缺，也是非常重要的。我们建议呢，香港政府能够成立一个数字金融的产业基金，能够加大的产业的提聚。最后一个就是我们希望能够加强与内地的协同，可以与内地与深圳这种大湾区建立跨境的 agent 的互联这样的一个平台，同时呢推动数字人民币与港元稳定币的协同创新能够打造一个数实融合的这样的全球的一个标杆。就是我们现在最后大家都能意识到，我们已经进入了一个全新的经济形态，我们把它称为 DAE。在这个经济形态中，它具备了7×24小时的全天候的运行，无边界的协作，毫秒级的反应，它的透明度、它的普惠度、它的效率都是极大的提升的。那么香港处在一个非常好的一个战略时机来把握这样一个历史的机遇。我们做这样一个尝试，不仅是要争夺一个国际金融的中心，而更是为全社会甚至全人类来塑造一个未来的人类的精神文明的一个新的形态所以我们非常期待这样一个美好的未来在不远的将来能够实现最后呢，也预祝呢本次论坛取得圆满的成功。谢谢大家。
谢谢，感谢范先生的精彩分享，请就座。Thank you, Mr. Fan. Next, we are very honored to welcome Professor Chen Long, President of the Luohan Academy, who share his insights on the digital economy. 现在我们有请罗汉堂秘书长陈龙先生，掌声有请。
Okay. Okay, good morning, dear distinguished guests, Lu Zhuxi, Xiu Hongzong, and dear friends. It's my great pleasure to be here. So, one quote I always feel enlightening came from the business thinker Peter Drucker. He once said that the most important work of the executive is to identify the future that has already happened. Indeed, we live in a breakthrough period of the information age. To properly understand and participate in this tremendous growth is a thing to all of us. So this morning, I have listened carefully to the previous talks. There's a lot of mission, strategy, and action, and I won't be able to add too much on that. But I think because given such tremendous changes, every year, the annual Hong Kong Web3 Festival is actually a milestone for reflection and for expectation. So in that regard, I would like to provide some thoughts. So the topic today I'm going to share with you is the 3 waves of information technology and the 3 waves of global fintech. Under that title, I would like to share 2 thoughts. The first is that I think probably it's time for us to rethink what exactly is Web3 right now. And to understand that, we need to go back to the first principles of information technology. What do I mean here? Well, if you think about it, actually, information has 3 essential pillars. Thinking is actually an information technology. Digitized information can be processed to do increasingly intelligent jobs, from simple calculating to AI. And connecting is also an information technology. Internet has tremendously reduced the cost of communicating, networking, and scaling. Its impact is so powerful, and nowadays we are willing to use the concept of Web3 to describe its future potential improvement. And crucially, no matter for thinking or for communicating, information should be easily verified and trustworthy. And so we need thinking technology, connecting technology, and trusting technology. And these three technologies actually work in combination to define our age. So for the AI thinkers, for the AI believers, they can now expect the smarter web and, as Wenzhong just mentioned, a more agent-friendly trust system. And the smart contracts, which were actually trust automated contracts, can now fulfill its promise of its names. And without trust, then AI can be polluted, and finance can never properly do its KYC. So I guess my first takeaway is that no matter you call this Web3 or not, actually a new vision of the information age has emerged. This new vision contains a large chunk of the original spirit of Web3, while the Web3 concept remains a choice, but it's also this new vision of the information age is still distinctively different. For example, think about governance. Originally, we thought that we want a world that can completely removal of the central authorities. Now we have a hybrid governance. And for settlement, now originally we thought about we can totally bypass traditional banks. Now we have banks still becomes a very important part of the infrastructure, and they have to update their underlying plumbings. And also for access and compliance, we thought about the permissionless entry without institutional backing. Now we have a public-private coexistence, and with joint hybrid on-chain systems. So I believe this is a new vision of the information age. But what is most fascinating is that the three technologies work together to define the future, and there's a lot of possibilities. Now, but why does this matter? Because the principles, the first principles actually dictate the future. Now we've been thinking about the Web3, talk about internet, now talk about AI. And now, but it's actually those principles that will guide the future. Now, let me move on to my second thought. It is precisely through the three waves of information technology. Actually, we have experienced, or we are experiencing, three waves of fintech. It now becomes clear, but when we talk about internet finance, when we talk about Web3, now we talk about AI, we didn't think this way. So I think it's worthwhile to look back into the past. So the first wave of fintech can be described as internet-powered financial inclusion. And the result is tremendous. Thinking about payment, now the world has more than 3 billion mobile payment accounts. Credit lending can be decided within a second. Amount can be democratized to $1, and data has become the new collateral, as Nobel Prize winner Ben Holmstrom first described it. And in this process, so if we think about the players, the platforms, they provide new gateways. But actually, the traditional financial institutions, they also embrace internet effectively. So we have a platform institution hybrid framework. And in this process, in this stage, actually China achieved world-leading capacities in this wave. And it's not just fintech. For anybody who have lived in China, they know by heart that it's a lifestyle. So China has been leading the mobile lifestyle thanks to this wave of the information technology. Now, the second wave of fintech can be described as blockchain-powered trust digitization. And it has several of its own periods, each period with its validation and falsification. And it is very important for us to learn what are the right products and what are the right required infrastructure. So we have learned that trust technology can create valuable assets. Trust technology can actually be programmed as platforms. Trust technology can be used to replace major financial functions. And finally, this wave of the trust technology can be integrated and regulated, thus becomes a fundamental part of the new financial system. So, and while this stage is actually just opening up and speeding up, then the arrival of the AI has made this necessary because of the agent world has made a humanless trust system becomes essential. And so if we think about this, which kind of financial system will come up with the third wave of the fintech? Now, we are going to have a financial system that becomes much more continuous and real time. It becomes from opaque, becomes more transparent, but within its bounds. You have to prove what you must, and you can hide what you should. And it becomes from intermediary heavy to infrastructure heavy. So now, and if we think about the value of this stage it can create, we see a lot. Now in China, a while ago, an important person asked me, why we already have the financial market? Why do we need RWA? If you think about it, actually for the first time, the financial assets can be, the compliance can be programmable, and the collaterals can be mobilized. And right now, 90% of the collaterals could not do that. And also the market access can be much more democratized, and settlement can be can much more reduce the risk, and there's more asset classes. If we think about where is this happening the fastest, you're going to think that in the past year or so, we're going to see the Asian Pacific and Africa and Latin America, they grow the fastest. Why are they the case? Because these are the places really that lack the financial infrastructure, or the currencies. The currencies they are not really trustworthy. Now, so you can see that this provides much more potential for the financial inclusion for the real economy. And finally, it is important because a large part of that is being used as a choice to hedge against unreliable currencies. Think about tokenized gold or other on-chain assets. And I think that choice is important to force the authorities to behave themselves, to have a more resilient financial system. And with the help of the AI, now trust can be really programmed, and intelligence can be verifiable, and value can be composable. If we think about financial inclusion nowadays, then the coverage right now it's not just about humans, but actually it covers agents. And talk about the transaction cost, it can be reduced 99%. Settlement speed can be reduced to seconds, and capital can be much more efficient, and the decision makers could be humans, practicals, and AI agents. So as a trained economist, let me summarize my thoughts with another quote. So Ronald Coase wrote his famous essay on the meaning of organization and the boundary of organization. And later, Douglas North actually concluded through his study that about 45% of the GDP actually is related to the information costs. And now with that, with the perspective, we can think about the three waves of information technology breakthroughs: the connection, the thinking, and the trust technology together has great potential. So, and in the past, as I just mentioned, China has demonstrated the world-class advancement in digital finance. And I believe that in the future, both China and Hong Kong region possess vast potential for this development. And I see a lot of the passion and progress. I'm very excited. Actually, in China, in Shanghai, I'm doing something similar to promote this. And I look forward to have more exchange with you guys. And after all, this is the future that is happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your insightful sharing. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our final keynote speaker this morning. His vision has fundamentally reshaped our understanding of the Web3 ecosystem, and it is my extraordinary privilege to welcome the co-founder of Ethereum. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please give a tremendous welcome to Mr. Vitalik Buterin.
Okay, hello everyone, good morning. So, where the Ethereum protocol is going. So, I think we have seen a lot of big changes in the Ethereum ecosystem over the last couple of years. I think we've also seen a lot of changes happening outside of the Ethereum ecosystem, including what's become possible with AI, including quantum computing, potentially coming up very soon, including advances in formal verification, including cryptography, zero-knowledge proofs. And I think one of the things that we have been really doing a lot of is rethinking, like what really makes sense to use Ethereum for. Why does Ethereum, like what properties does Ethereum need to have? Why Ethereum needs to have these properties, and like how this fits into the roadmap for the Ethereum protocol over the next 5 years. So, what is Ethereum for, right? I think of it as having two big functionalities. So one is that Ethereum is a public billboard. So it is a place where applications can post messages, and everyone sees what messages were posted in what order. These messages can be anything. They can be transactions, they can be hashes, they can be encrypted data, they can be many other things. And actually, there's a lot of opportunity for applications to use both Ethereum as a place to post data, and at the same time, other kinds of protocols to interpret that data, to decrypt the data, to do computation on that data. And then also the second is the computation, right? So basically, what Ethereum lets you do is it lets you have shared digital objects that are controlled by code. These digital objects can be many things. They can be ETH, the asset. It can be ERC20s. It can be NFTs. It could be NFTs that have meaning outside of Ethereum. So ENS is one example. It can also even mean control over organizations. So things like DAOs are one example, but you can do many things. So both of these are highly valuable for decentralized applications that guarantee self-sovereign security, verifiability, and fair participation to all of their users. So what do we mean by this? So self-sovereign basically means you as a user can participate, can verify, can be sure that you are secure, all with your own infrastructure. You do not need to trust any third party. You do not need to trust a third party to run Ethereum, and you also should not need to trust a third party outside of Ethereum if you do not want to. So verifiability, the ability to verify that the chain is progressing correctly, and to verify that everything that's happening is what is supposed to be happening, and also the ability to guarantee anyone's right to actually publish messages to this billboard. So this is the core. We should think of Ethereum as being a technical building block and think about all of the, what kinds of applications this technical building block enables. Most interesting applications will be a combination of on-chain and off-chain. This includes ENS. This includes prediction markets. Prediction markets have an on-chain component, which is the assets that they create for every event, the ability to trade those assets. Also, they have off-chain components. One of them is the Oracle. Another one is that sometimes there's prediction market designs where trading and order matching happen off-chain. And then also anything with privacy. So for example, there has been decades of work on cryptographic protocols that make it easy or that try to enable secure electronic voting. And a lot of these protocols, they often rely on a public billboard, a place where people can post information, in this case, their encrypted votes, in a way that guarantees everyone's ability to participate. Anything with privacy has to have an on-chain part, publishing data on-chain, and an off-chain part, interpreting that data. Interpreting the data has to happen off-chain in a private protocol. So we talk a lot about L2s, and the way that I think about L2s and the way that I think about the types of L2s that make sense is that I think the type of L2 that does not make sense is just you take Ethereum, you make a clone of Ethereum, you make it 100 times bigger, you make it more centralized, and you are done. The type of L2 that I think makes sense is you start to look through these applications, you ask, what are the off-chain components that they need? What are the parts that they need other than the Ethereum L1? And then you build that. So what this means for Ethereum, we need scaling for data. We need the ability to publish much more data on-chain. And PeerDAS, which came in the most recent hard fork last year, already includes that, but we still need to push that further. Scaling of compute is also important because scaling compute that is part of the Ethereum chain allows different applications to compose with each other, to talk to each other without requiring intermediaries. Now, this is the straw map. If you go to strawmap.org, you can find this. This is a proposed roadmap for the next 5 years of Ethereum. So the core goals for the protocol in the short term, one is short-term scaling, continuing to aggressively increase the gas limit. One of them is to begin the ZK EVM rollout. I'll talk about this. ZK EVMs allow Ethereum to scale much more, have much more computation, while still making it very easy to verify the chain. Early post-quantum readiness. We have been thinking about quantum computing for years. We have recognized for years that it is a problem, and we have some things very soon in the short term that will improve Ethereum's quantum safety, and the entire roadmap already, like this roadmap, by the end of it, Ethereum will be fully quantum safe for all parts of it and very efficiently. Improving the block building pipeline and improving support for privacy. So short-term scaling, there are a number of EIPs, proposals that will go into the next Ethereum hard fork, block-level access lists, which enable parallelization, gas repricing, which enables more efficiency. It also makes it safer for gas limits to be higher. EPBS makes it safer for it to take longer to verify Ethereum blocks, and improvements in Ethereum's ability, and Ethereum node's ability to download the state. EIP 8141, this is the account abstraction proposal. It's both very simple and very powerful. Basically, a transaction is a list of calls, and so one of the calls could be verification, one of the calls could be execution, and this makes it very easy for Ethereum to have native support for smart contract wallets, for paying for other people's transactions, for quantum-resistant signature algorithms, and for privacy protocols. So this makes Ethereum more general purpose, and so it supports many functionalities at the same time. Quantum resistance. So quantum-resistant signature algorithms exist. They have existed for 20 years. We know what they are. We know how to build them. The problem is that they are less efficient. So a quantum-resistant signature takes 2 or 3 kilobytes compared to 64 bytes right now, and it takes 200,000 gas on-chain compared to 3,000 gas on-chain right now. And so there are 2 types of signatures that we can use. One of them is hash-based. The other is lattice-based signatures. And then the idea is that we add vectorization into the EVM, basically the same kind of logic that allows computers to run AI very quickly. We used basically process many numbers in parallel at the same time. The same logic can be used for lattice-based signatures, basically working aggressively to make quantum-resistant signatures much more efficient. Midterm goal, the state. So the state stores Ethereum accounts, balances, smart contracts. Scaling execution is easier, scaling the state is harder. There's a lot of work that we have to do on this. So that is all the short term. The longer term, and this is where we really want Ethereum to go, right? So Ethereum is not meant to compete with high-frequency trading platforms. Ethereum is not meant to be the fastest chain. Ethereum is meant to be the secure chain, the decentralized chain, the chain that continues to be online, the chain that you can rely on. So one goal is maximally safe consensus, meaning if the network is synchronous, meaning if the network does not have problems, it can survive 49% of the nodes having faults, and it can actually survive almost all of the nodes going offline. So same property as Bitcoin. And then if the network has problems, then you still have finality with 33% security. That's one. Part 2 is formally verify everything. And we've been aggressively starting to use AI to generate mathematical proofs that the software that will be running the long-term version of Ethereum actually has the properties that it is supposed to have. We've already made progress that would have been impossible 2 years ago. AI is progressing quickly, and so we are using that. Full quantum resistance, also maximum simplicity, keep long-term Ethereum as simple as possible, and maximally future-proof, right? So Ethereum needs to pass the walk-away test. Ethereum needs to be a platform that you can rely on, even if there are no core devs left, right? Because and this is the same thing that Bitcoin strives for. This is the same thing that you have to strive for if you want to be a base for long-term secure assets, for long-term digital objects. You need to be something whose ongoing safety does not depend on one team continuing to exist and one team always continuing to work. Lean consensus. So lean consensus takes the best of both worlds between the Bitcoin-style approach, that's called the available chain, and the BFT approach, that's the finality. It gets both with optimal security properties, quantum safe, and fast finality. So finality within 1 to 3 slots, basically expect the chain to finalize within like 10 or 20 seconds, maybe less. ZK EVMs let you verify the chain without having a big computer that runs everything yourself. Everyone should be verifying the chain before they trust it. Even your phone should be verifying your chain. Even IoT devices should be verifying the chain. And ZK EVMs are already sufficiently fast to prove real-time EVM execution. The goal this year is to make them sufficiently safe. And the goal this year is to start with small percentages of the network using ZK EVMs and then increasing that over time, and to move to ZK EVMs being the primary way to validate the chain by 2028. And so this allows Ethereum to scale much more, process many more transactions without becoming centralized. So what is the vision behind these things, right? So Ethereum is the world computer. Ethereum is both a global shared layer for making commitments, for publishing data that represents actions that different users wants to take. It is a place where you can publish data, where you can prove that data has been published, and you can also prove that data has not been published. And that is very open for everyone to use. And it's also a global shared layer for high-value, guaranteed execution of rules. Ethereum needs to be maximally robust and maximally easy to verify. I think in the future, with AI, it will actually be easier than we've imagined to write actually secure software if you want to be secure. But if people do not want to be secure, then software will have 10 times more bugs than before. It will be attacked 10 times more than before. And so Ethereum as a blockchain needs to be on the secure side first, on the decentralized side first. And when those things are guaranteed, make that security available to users as much as possible. So Ethereum is there to build decentralized applications that guarantee self-sovereign security, verifiability, and fair participation for their users. This includes financial, this includes decentralized social, this includes identity, this includes applications that have one part financial and one part not financial, which includes things like ENS, includes things like prediction markets, it includes many things. And Ethereum, it will make building applications that are like this easy and default. And this is the core goal that the roadmap for the next 4 years is designed around. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vitalik. What an incredible morning of insights. Thank you very much, Vitalik. And also thank you to every single speaker this morning who shared their vision with us. We've heard from the highest levels of government, regulation, industry, and academia. The message is very clear. The future is being built, and it is being built here through collaboration, innovation, and responsible growth. This concludes the opening ceremony at the Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2026. More wonderful agenda will go on at the main stage and at the other 2 sub-stages in the following event days. Please scan the QR code on the event catalog for more details of the agenda. 开幕仪式到此结束，接下来几天的活动中，我们还将在主会场和其他的2个分会场为大家带来更多精彩的分享。大家可以扫描会看手册上的2维码，查看议程的详情。Besides, ladies and gentlemen, you can also collect stamps by visiting the booths. When you collect a certain number of stamps, you can claim a gift at the information desk. The number of gifts are limited. They will be provided on a first-come, first-served basis. 另外，在会看手册的赞助上 logo 页、参展上均有一个盖章处。活动期间完成集章任务，可以到资讯台领取对应的礼品1份。每人每天限领1次，数量有限，先到先得。Once again, thank you so much for your participation this morning. More wonderful agenda will go on this afternoon. Remember to come back at 1:30 p.m. See you all then. 再次感谢大家的参与。我们下午1点半的时间，各个会场精彩的主题论坛等着大家。弊案联合首席执行官何毅女士将会带来开场分享。我们下午1点半再见，谢谢大家。